If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon, link is in the description.
Chapter 41. After that day, the Ninja Kill card game suddenly became a big hit. It first took off at the Ninja Academy. The next day, Naruto and the others brought their cards to challenge others, and soon the game spread like wildfire. Then, Tenton's family's ninja tool shop was almost trampled by the village kids and their parents. After that, other merchants came to negotiate wholesale deals for the cards. But since Natsuki was only the inventor of the game, all trading decisions were up to the shop owner, his father-in-law. All Natsuki had to do was sit back and wait to collect his share of the profits. The shop owner knew Natsuki was a capable guy and happily went off to do business. But Ninja Kill really did explode in popularity. For a while, the entire village was obsessed. Even some of the ninja got into it. After all, whether they had missions or not, life was usually pretty boring. Not everyone was like Kakashi, who loved reading Ika Ika Paradise, and constantly playing poker got old. The appearance of the Ninja Kill card game filled that void perfectly. What could Natsuki do? He was making a fortune, that's what. But of course, trouble soon followed. Natsuki! Natsuki! Come play Ninja Kill with us. We're trying to play the Ninja Village defense mode but don't have enough people. Naruto shouted once again. Sigh. Naruto, give it a rest. Natsuki rubbed his temples. Sure, the game is fun, and it lets you live out your dream of being Kage for a bit. But don't forget to study and train, alright? Every time you become the Kage in the game, you go on a killing spree. I've been your teammate a few times and you keep killing me. What happened to your basic ninja skills like intel gathering? Naruto turned red and stubbornly replied, I am learning now, Date Bayo. I'll definitely be a great Hokage in the future. Natsuki rolled his eyes. Exactly why you should focus on learning and training. Otherwise, you'll only ever be Hokage in the game, and forget about it in real life. Naruto couldn't argue back, but he couldn't give up the game either, so he went off to find others to play with. Luckily, Hinata the sweet idiot decided to join in, letting Naruto start up another round of Ninja Village defense. Natsuki thought that although he created this game to earn money for marriage, he might have ended up ruining Naruto's future. Would this savior of the world even be able to save the world if things kept up like this? What if, when facing Kaguya, he just threw out 2 dodge cards? Wouldn't the entire shinobi world be doomed? But Natsuki quickly got over it. After all, Naruto was the chosen savior by the world itself. That old geezer, the sage of 6 paths, was still watching. Nothing major would go wrong. No need to interfere too much. He found Shikamaru. Shikamaru, do you have any flash bombs? He remembered in the original story, only Shikamaru seemed to use flash bombs effectively, paired with his shadow techniques, so he should have some. Shikamaru tossed down a card and replied while playing, I've got some at home. I'll bring one for you later. But what do you want a flash bomb for? Never mind, sounds like a pain. I won't ask. Thanks. I'll pay you for it. Natsuki wouldn't just take a friend's stuff for free. A flash bomb was a proper ninja tool and probably expensive. As he sat back down, Shino couldn't help but ask, Natsuki, got a new idea? Natsuki smiled and nodded. Yup. And it's perfect for you. Think about it, Earth Release has the hardening technique, which works by absorbing the properties of Earth, right? And the iron body I created absorbs iron's properties. So what would happen if you absorbed the components of a flash bomb and activated it with chakra? Shino's sunglasses flashed. It would emit an intense burst of light. Natsuki gave a thumbs up. Bingo! This technique will be called Solar Fist. Once I develop it, I'll teach you. You wear sunglasses, so the intense light won't blind you, but your enemies won't even be able to open their eyes. Wouldn't you be able to go on a rampage? Natsuki, you always come up with wild ideas. Shino was already used to being amazed, but there was clear anticipation behind his shades. Natsuki waved him off. Alright, stop flattering me. I get cocky easily. Come over to my house on the 2nd of next month. I'll definitely have results by then. Oh, and Tenton's investigation into powerful ninja tools and summoning beasts is making progress. Let's check it out together. Maybe you'll find a summon you want. At that moment, in the Hokage's office, Konoha's shadow Hokage, Shimura Denso, pushed open the office door with his cane. All his old friends were already seated, waiting. Hiruzen Sarutobi saw him and casually pulled out a deck of Ninja Kill. Danzo, you're here. Ever played Ninja Kill? Let's play while we talk. He shuffled 4 identity cards and placed them on the table. Danzo hobbled over and picked one. His eyelid twitched, usurper. Sarutobi picked one too and flipped it over, cage. Koharu and Homura also drew a card each but stayed quiet, waiting as Sarutobi shuffled the character deck for them to draw from. As he shuffled, Sarutobi kept talking. This card game really is something. It brings ninja combat to the tabletop. You can play one-on-one, one versus many, many versus many, and even the ninja village defense mode. And look at my luck, still Hokage in the game. Crack, it sounded like Danzo's cane had cracked. He drew a character card, only to find it was a Uchiha character. His expression darkened as he slammed the card onto the table. Sarutobi, the Uchiha were evil. We wiped them out for the village's sake. I played no small part in that. Are you planning to discard me now that I've served my purpose? Sarutobi flipped his card. Second Hokage, Tobirama. He chuckled. I had that card specially made by the card game's inventor. There's only one in the entire ninja world. I must have shuffled it in earlier by accident, lucky me. But Danzo, do you know why Tobirama sensei chose me to be Hokage back then? He didn't answer Danzo's question, but the message was clear. Danzo understood immediately and clenched his teeth without replying. That brat Natsuki, what was he doing making these damn cards, even creating a special one for Sarutobi? Sarutobi, that shameless old man, pretending it was luck. As if. Just like back then Tobirama had asked a question and Sarutobi answered first, so he got chosen as Hokage. What was there to be smug about? If it hadn't been for his tireless work in the shadows, would Sarutobi have enjoyed such glory all these years? Now Sarutobi wanted to get rid of Root because the Uchiha threat was gone and Root was growing too powerful? Figures. Sarutobi wasn't dumb, he must have realized Root was becoming a threat to the Hokage seat. As if he'd let that happen. Danzo tossed out 2 cards and activated his Sharingan, then used Shunshin, Kill and said coldly, Sarutobi, you can't disband Root. Sarutobi didn't dodge, throwing down a water release, water shockwave to counter. Danzo, I am the Hokage. Chapter 42. Crack, the cane suffered again. Danzo's face darkened as he continued his attack. Katon, Gaki no Jutsu. Hiruzen, you'll regret this. But Homura quickly threw out a Doton, Dorieki to block for Hiruzen. Danzo, you need to rein it in. The clans have a lot of complaints about Root. Danzo nearly crushed the cards in his hand. Homura, you're a partner. Then Koharu followed with a Fiton, Shuriken no Jutsu aimed at Danzo. Danzo, I'm a partner too. In this match, there's only the cage and partners. No rogues, no enemy ninjas, and no spies. Good. Very good. Danzo tossed his hand away and flipped over his identity card. So you've all decided I'm the usurper and ganged up on me? I've toiled in the shadows for years, doing the dirty work none of you would touch. Now the Uchiha are gone, and you want to cast me aside like a worn-out tool. The 3 said nothing. With what they knew about Danzo, calling him a usurper wasn't far off. This man had even attempted to assassinate the Hokage, and his eyes were always set on the Hokage seat. If that wasn't a usurper, what was? Hiruzen also set his cards down, took a deep puff from his pipe, and sighed. Danzo, disband Root. The village is heading into an era of peace, and Root has become a hindrance to that peace. You should understand. Danzo remained silent for a long while. But he had no room to refuse. Yet deep in his eyes was a glint of ferocity and unwillingness. Fine. I'll hand over the list of Root members. But I want to keep a few aides. The 3 of them breathed a sigh of relief. That's acceptable. Danzo stormed out, but not an ounce of submission could be seen in his eyes. Disband Root? Fine, he'd disband it. But with the curse mark he'd implanted on their tongues, those who left Root would still be his. As long as he lived, the game wasn't over. He would definitely become the 5th Hokage. That night, the 1st of the month. Natsuki slipped into his special lab, carrying a flash bomb in his hand. Channeling chakra, he absorbed the flash bomb's properties into his body. Then, imitating Tien Shinyan's stance, he planted his feet and pointed his fingers at his temples. Taken. Buzz. A brilliant flash of light burst from his body, flooding the area. Even though Natsuki was the source of the light, the flash still left his vision blurred. Any enemy in front of him would have been in an even worse state. Natsuki was very satisfied. Didn't think it'd succeed this easily. Still, I'd better carry extra sunglasses from now on. If I hit my team with Teiken too, no one will be left to back up the ambush. First project done, time to move on to the next big jutsu. He mentally conjured a massive forest in the lab and formed a raised nan in his hand, pressing it onto a large tree. Nagase nan. Ortamo Nagase nan. Suten, Duzashio Futama. Boom. Natsuki hurled the scalding whirlpool water ball into the distance. It exploded on impact, unleashing a giant vortex that shredded an entire mountain to pieces, while a cloud of boiling steam swept out in every direction. Thankfully, he'd thrown it far enough that he wasn't caught in the blast. Clearly, after many tweaks, his version of Ozashio Furidama was far more stable and now usable as a long-range jutsu. Phew! Finally got it. All that research paid off. Natsuki grinned. He could now confirm his combat power was at least Jonin level, only lacking real battle experience. That could come after graduation, no rush. Next, he began testing other techniques. He clapped his hands, and a huge Doton spinning top shot out of the ground, spinning violently and crashing down, instantly drilling a deep hole into the earth. Doton, Chiten Ma Wari. Then came the next move. He lifted a grindstone-sized spinning disc of water over his head. It whirled fiercely, emitting a terrifying slicing noise, then he flung it forward. Suten, Sui Enzen. Zzzzz. The Sui Enzen spun straight through a mountain neck and beheaded it in one clean sweep. Its sharpness was undeniable. Natsuki then extended both hands. From his left fingers shot out razor-sharp chakra threads that cleanly sliced a thick tree into firewood. From his right hand came sticky chakra threads that easily latched onto several trees and ripped them from the ground with a tug. Yup, that's about it. These techniques should be more than enough for now. As for what's next, I'm aiming for the Hachiman and the Hotaki swordsmanship. Once Hiruzen dies and Tsunade becomes the 5th Hokage, I'll ask her for Hiration no Jutsu. When Konoha's short on talent, I doubt she'll refuse. But that's all theoretical. No telling how things will actually go. In the meantime, I can't waste the remaining years before graduation. The top priority now is Sage Mode. In truth, the history of the ninja world held plenty of examples of absorbing natural energy. Even the library might have relevant texts, since Sage Mode wasn't a foreign concept to most shinobi. Jiraiya, Minato, even Hashirama, each of them had mastered Sage Mode. From the founding of Konoha to now, many had seen it. But few dared attempt it. Randomly absorbing natural energy turned people into stone. Only Jiraiya and Minato succeeded thanks to the guidance of the Toad Sages. As for Hashirama, he was the god of shinobi. Of course he could use it. So really, finding a method to absorb natural energy wasn't that hard. Even if the library didn't have it, worst case he could buy it at the exchange pavilion. No way he wouldn't get his hands on it. Once he had it, he could safely conduct experiments in his lab without dying. As long as he carefully adjusted the ratio of natural energy, physical energy, and spiritual energy, he would eventually master Sage Mode. At that point, his power would skyrocket easily Kage level. Everything was planned out. The next day, on the 2nd, Shino arrived at Natsuki's house. Tenton was there too, flipping through a stack of scrolls. Shino wasn't surprised. Tenton had the house key and had long since claimed the role of lady of the house. "You're here, Shino. Come on in. Tenton, you too." Natsuki ushered them both inside and handed out sunglasses for himself and Tenton. "The light from Teiken is intense, so we need these. I'll teach you both now." He shut all the doors and windows, strapped the flash bomb to himself, and assumed the stance to activate Teiken. A burst of blinding light filled the house. Even with sunglasses on, the three of them struggled to see clearly. But that only proved how effective Teiken really was. Tenton praised it. "This is a great move. The enemy would be instantly blinded like lambs waiting for slaughter." Shino nodded in agreement. "Very effective. But we need to prep the team with sunglasses and come up with a code word. Once the signal is given, everyone puts them on. If not, and teammates get blinded too, it defeats the purpose." Chapter 43. Natsuki naturally agreed and began carefully explaining the training method for Teiken. In fact, since Shino had already learned Tekai, learning Teiken wouldn't be hard. But absorbing the properties of external objects into the body was still dangerous, so it was best to be cautious especially during early training. He recommended using shadow clones to try it first. Also, training should be done indoors with all windows and doors shut. Now that the Uchiha police force was gone, Konoha was like a sieve, spies were everywhere. They had to be careful this trump card didn't get leaked. Very soon, Shino memorized the entire training method. As for Tenton, she was with Natsuki nearly every day before graduation anyway, so he would just teach her personally. By the way, part of the intel my dad pulled through backdoor connections has arrived, come take a look. Tenton pulled out the scroll she'd been browsing earlier. This pile is information about ninja tools, and this one is about summoning beasts. Help me go over them, and if there's anything you want, just say it, we'll figure out a way to get it. Tenton was clearly excited. After all, her path forward was focused on ninja tool mastery and summoning jutsu. As long as she could acquire powerful ninja tools and contract a strong summon, plus the body enhancements from Natsuki's repeated lightning stimulation, her physical strength and chakra reserves would steadily grow. Even if she didn't reach cage level, elite Jonin was practically guaranteed. Natsuki opened one scroll and immediately froze. The ninja tools from Takumai village. He stared at the intel. It detailed the Takumai village's legendary 4-piece ninja tool set, infinite whole armor, dragon eye extendable blade, peacock twin blades, and lightsaber. Weren't these from an anime original arc? Did that mean this world included anime originals? Maybe even movie content? Natsuki wasn't sure. But he did know those 4 tools were genuinely impressive. The infinite whole armor could absorb chakra, the dragon eye extendable blade could be lengthened or shortened by adjusting chakra flow and even turn into 3 dragon heads, the peacock twin blades could manipulate wind and unleash wind slashes, and the lightsaber could fire beams of light and flame. And the best part? They barely consumed any chakra. On top of that, the 4 could be combined for an even greater power boost. If Tenton, a ninja tool specialist, could obtain this set, her strength would instantly leap past Jonin. She could probably hold off a Jonin, and after mastering them, she'd definitely be on Jonin level. What were they waiting for? Natsuki handed the scroll to Tenton. Take a look at this, you're a perfect fit for them. Tenton's eyes lit up as she read. She immediately saw how much these tools could boost her combat power. But she couldn't help but complain, Natsuki, we're not bandits. We can't just steal other people's stuff. What if it ruins Konoha's reputation? Tenton, did you read the intel properly? Natsuki chuckled. These tools are currently in the hands of 4 Takumai village ninjas who call themselves the 4 Celestial Symbols Men. They're basically criminals who go around causing trouble. Taking their tools is just doing the world a favor. Besides, we can post a bounty at the exchange pavilion as long as our names don't get exposed, it's all good. In truth, Natsuki wasn't worried at all. The 4 Celestial Symbols guys really were bad news. And those who accepted exchange pavilion jobs weren't saints either. Take someone like Kakuzu. If he went after the bounty, he'd probably kill them all and grab the loot without a second thought. So what's to worry about? Just take them. Alright then. That 4-piece set is mine. Tenton agreed without hesitation. Just then, Shino passed over another scroll. Most of the other tools are nothing special, but the 7 swords of Kirigakura are worth a look. I've heard of them before. 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist? Tenton took the scroll and saw the bizarre weapons. She hesitated. Especially after realizing they were tied to Kirigakura, she didn't really want to get involved. After all, Kirigakura was one of the 5 great villages. If they stole their iconic tools, the retaliation could be a nightmare. Natsuki saw her hesitation and patiently explained. Tenton, maybe you've never heard of the swordsman's backstory, or Kirigakura's situation. Back in the Great Ninja War, the Mist sent the 7 swordsmen to ambush Konoha. Each of the 7 was an elite Jonin with a sword tailored to them, and when working together, they could even kill a cage. That powerful? Tenton and Shino were shocked. They could hardly imagine it. Yup. But before they could even reach the village gates, 4 of them were killed on the spot by a senior named Might-Do. The remaining 3 ran away like dogs and never dared step into the land of fire again. Afterward, the group reformed, but a bloody mist rebellion broke out. One by one, the swordsmen defected and became rogue ninjas. So now, the 7 swords are out in the wild. If we get them from missing Nin, what's the issue? None at all. And those swords were powerful, definitely worth acquiring. Tenton got excited. So, we keep posting bounties at the exchange pavilion. Natsuki quickly stopped her. Don't be hasty. Not all the swords suit you, and some are tricky to handle. For example, same hata has its own will. If you're not strong enough, it won't acknowledge you, you'll never control it. And the executioner's blade just absorbs blood to repair itself. Honestly, kind of lame. No need to bother with it. Tenton calmed down and reread the intel. Eventually, she made her choice. Then I'll put a bounty on Kaiba, the Thunder Swords. They seem really good. Natsuki nodded. Kaiba was indeed excellent. With just chakra input, it could unleash lightning attacks both up close and at range. In thunderstorm weather, it could even summon lightning from the sky. Extremely powerful. Tenton's lightning affinity wasn't bad either, so it was a perfect match. In the anime original arc, it was Team Guy and Naruto who fought the sword wielders of Kaiba. If it weren't filler, Tenton could have totally claimed the blades herself, and her strength would have skyrocketed. Now that this world included filler plots, he might as well hand Kaiba over to her. Beyond that, Tenton had her eyes on some other unique tools. She planned to issue secret bounties later to keep them as hidden trump cards. Then came the summoning beasts. Shino read through a few scrolls before saying, actually, the Abarame clan has special summons giant insects. I'll ask my dad about them when I get back. As expected of a big clan, they had everything. Natsuki and Tenton discussed it and settled on one. Then let's go with these Highland giant eagles. Not only are they strong, they can carry people and deliver messages, super practical. As for how to get one? Simple. Post a bounty and have someone deliver the contract scroll. Money really did make life easier. Tenton beamed. By the way, Natsuki, continue the story from before. About that might do a senior. Chapter 44. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, more than 3 years had passed. It was once again graduation season. Early in the morning, Tenton had already put on her forehead protector. With her signature double bun hairstyle, a pink short jacket, and deep green capri pants, she looked spirited and valiant. Perhaps due to Natsuki's frequent lightning-based training, Tenton had developed quite well. Now at 12 years old, she stood graceful and elegant. Natsuki gave her a look from head to toe, showing a satisfied smile. As expected of my girlfriend, you're getting more and more beautiful. Tenton smiled shyly and boldly tiptoed to kiss Natsuki on the cheek. Nowadays, Natsuki was tall and handsome, and even though Tenton was a year older, she was still nearly a head shorter. But she liked this version of Natsuki, confident, powerful, and increasingly attractive. Still, she needed to be careful of that face-obsessed Ino. Well, I'm heading off. Natsuki, Dad, see you later. She turned and ran toward the academy, her confident, composed back radiating an effortless charm. Over the years, Natsuki had personally guided his girlfriend into becoming such an excellent young woman. The overwhelming sense of achievement he felt couldn't even be put into words. The shopkeeper uncle whispered, Natsuki, you better protect Tenton well. Natsuki nodded solemnly. Don't worry, father-in-law, I'll protect her with my life. Go on with you. I'm not your father-in-law yet. Although the shopkeeper spoke with mock annoyance, his eyes were full of trust in Natsuki. After all, not only had Natsuki made Tenton stronger, he himself had become even more powerful. There was no need to worry about their safety. At the Ninja Academy. Team 3, Hyuga Niji, Rock Lee, Tenton. Jonin instructor, Might Guy. Tenton glanced at her teammates in surprise. She really wanted to comment on Rock Lee's thick eyebrows, but what shocked her even more was being placed on the same team as a Hyuga genius. Over the years, Tenton had followed Natsuki's stealth path strategy and never truly revealed her strength at school. So how did she end up in this grouping? What excited her even more was their instructor, none other than Might Guy. Tenton had heard plenty about Guy from Natsuki, including the story of Might Do, Guy's father, who had taken down several members of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. She deeply respected him. Her boyfriend spoke very highly of Guy, and even coveted his Hachiman, 8 gates, technique. Perfect. As his girlfriend, she'd be the one to get her hands on the 8 gates. Not long after, a bizarre-looking man with a kappa hairstyle entered the classroom and shouted, Team 3. Hyuga Niji, Rock Lee, Tenton, follow me. Hey? Was this Might Guy? Wasn't he, a kappa? Tenton was stunned, her mind full of silent complaints, even starting to doubt Natsuki's judgment. Guy's fashion sense was that ridiculous. On a second-floor balcony, the green spandex-clad kappa Might Guy stood proudly with his hands on his hips. I am Konoha's proud blue beast, Might Guy. Pleased to meet you. Now, everyone, introduce yourselves. Niji turned his head to the side. I'm not interested. Lee immediately raised his hand. Me. My name is Rock Lee. My dream is to prove that even someone who can't use ninjutsu can still become a strong ninja. Niji responded with ridicule. Even the ever-optimistic Guy could tell this was going to be a problem. He had observed Lee before and recognized his effort and potential. Lee was someone Guy had specifically requested for his team. As for Niji, well, the Hyuga clan had too many internal issues, far beyond his control. He just hoped Niji wouldn't tear apart the team dynamic. Then there was the girl. She'd been looking at him strangely the entire time. Could it be, she was awed by his powerful aura? Tenton then introduced herself. I'm Tenton. I like meat buns and Natsuki. I dislike weaklings. My dream is to become a powerful kunoichi like Lady Tsunade. Oh? Aspiring to be like Tsunade-sama? That's a fine dream. Guy gave her a thumbs up and followed up with a question. So, Tenton, who is Natsuki? And why are you looking at me like that? Tenton didn't shy away. Natsuki is my boyfriend. He's told me about you, Guy Sensei. Guy's eyes widened. So even Tenton has a boyfriend, hey? And what did your boyfriend say about me? Tenton replied suspiciously, I once asked Natsuki who the strongest person in Konoha was, and without any hesitation, he said Might Guy. But now that I see you, you don't really look like the strongest. Nanny. Tenton, your boyfriend really said that about me? He's got such great taste. Ha 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 ha. Guy laughed heartily, hands on hips. Niji and Lee turned to look at Tenton, totally unconvinced. Tenton, is your boyfriend mentally okay? Of course he is. Natsuki knows a ton. Tenton defended him instinctively. Natsuki once told me, during the Shinobi World War, the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist launched a sneak attack on Konoha. Those 7 were incredibly powerful together, they could probably kill a cage. At the time, Guy Sensei had just graduated and was on a mission with his teammates when they were ambushed by the swordsmen. It was a desperate situation, but then, your father Might Do arrived, opened the 8 gates, and kicked 4 of them to death on the spot. The remaining 3 fled like dogs and never dared step into the land of fire again. Then she realized something. She looked up and saw Might Guy actually crying. She panicked. I'm so sorry, Guy Sensei. I shouldn't have brought up such a painful memory. No, Tenton. I'm not sad, and I'm not blaming you, Guy said emotionally, I'm just so moved that someone remembers my father's story. It's so passionate, so touching, this is youth. Don't worry, my father made a choice for his own beliefs. He saved me and my teammates, and became a hero who protected the village. I've always been proud of him. As he spoke, he gave a dramatic thumbs up. His teeth sparkled brightly. Tenton really wanted to comment, but didn't know where to start. She let out a breath of relief, annoyed with herself for speaking carelessly. Thankfully, Guy Sensei hadn't taken it badly. Niji and Lee were shocked. Wait, you're saying Guy Sensei's father had cage-level strength? Then, why have we never heard of him? Guy smiled as he wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. Actually, my father was just a lifetime genin. A lifetime genin? That couldn't be true. Someone that strong, and still a genin? My father didn't have great talent. He couldn't master ninjutsu, so he focused entirely on taijutsu. The 8 gates technique doesn't show much strength in the early stages, it only becomes truly powerful when you open the later gates. So, my father stayed a genin his whole life. But that day, he opened the gate of death, fulfilled his beliefs, and earned the title of a hero, at the cost of his life. Guy didn't speak with sadness, only pride and fondness. Chapter 45. At this moment, Tenton began to truly believe in Natsuki's assessment. So, you really can't judge a book by its cover. Despite Guy Sensei's bizarre appearance, his strength and conviction were absolutely no joke. She added, Natsuki said the same thing. He also said that the current Guy Sensei is way stronger than Do Senpai was back then. With 6 gates open, you could probably fight a cage. With 7 gates, you'd be a super cage. And if you opened the death gate, you might even kick the Sage of 6 Paths into oblivion. Okay, that was getting a bit exaggerated. Was it really that insane? Neither Niji nor Lee believed it, but Lee couldn't help getting fired up. He'd always wanted to prove that even without ninjutsu, one could become a powerful ninja. Guy Sensei and his father were living proof of that. Now it was Rock Lee's turn to carry that legacy forward. So he had to learn the 8 gates. Might Guy, hearing all this, instinctively struck what he thought was a cool pose and laughed loudly. Tenton, your boyfriend's got a sharp eye. Even if what he said is over the top, I'll keep striving toward that. Might Guy, Konoha's proud blue beast, will one day be the strongest in the shinobi world. So, Guy Sensei, can I learn the 8 gates? Tenton went straight to the point. Hey? Oh, of course, Guy replied, still catching up. Then, can I teach them to my boyfriend? Well, Guy paused, then grew serious. Tenton, the 8 gates isn't something just anyone can train in. I'm willing to teach you because you're my student, and I'll be guiding you personally to reach the stage of opening the gates. But as for your boyfriend, I'd have to meet him first to determine if he's even suitable. Tenton was confident. Then I'll introduce you when I get the chance. He's way stronger than I am, maybe even stronger than you. Natsuki was about to graduate, so he didn't need to keep hiding his strength anymore. Tenton didn't mind letting a few secrets slip. But Guy clearly didn't believe it. Ha ha ha. Stronger than me? That's not possible. But sure, bring him over sometime, I'll check his physical condition. If he's able, I wouldn't mind teaching him. Guy wasn't like some elite clans with rigid traditions. In fact, even in the original story, though he only taught Lee, he likely gave some guidance to Niji and Tenton as well. It's just that Niji had his own clan techniques, and Tenton's body wasn't suited for it. Learning the 8 gates wasn't easy, even a genius like Kakashi had a hard time mastering the first gate. But since Guy had agreed to teach, Natsuki's path to learning the 8 gates was now clear. Tenton was overjoyed and couldn't wait to get back to Natsuki for praise and kisses. Guy Sensei, I want to learn too. Lee shouted, hand raised. Ha ha ha. As long as you're willing to train hard, I'll teach you all. But I'll warn you, the 8 gates is no walk in the park. I'm not afraid of hard work. Good. That's the spirit. Now let me test your current strength. After that, Guy brought the 3 students to the training field to conduct one-on-one matches. He wanted to assess their skills so he could tailor his teaching accordingly. First up was Lee. He lost in just a few moves. Second was Niji. His Byakugan and Gentle Fist were impressive. Probably Chunin level. Finally, it was Tenton's turn. Tenton took a deep breath and tightened her forehead protector. This would be her first battle against a real ninja, and her opponent was an elite Jonin. The pressure was immense, but she was confident in herself. Thanks to all the help from Natsuki and Shino, she had grown tremendously. Even if she lost, it wouldn't be by much. Come, Tenton. Show me everything you've got. Guy readied his stance. Tenton pulled out 2 scrolls and rapidly summoned ninja tools. A storm of kunao and shuriken rained down on Guy. He was shocked and quickly got serious, dodging and deflecting with precision. He wasn't hit at all. But he now realized he had to take Tenton seriously. To be able to summon so many ninja tools so smoothly right after graduating, with that barrage alone, she could take down a squad of average genin. What a surprise! His team had a hidden gem. Lee was already sweating. He'd never seen Tenton use this move at school. He always thought she was average. Clearly, she was anything but. Niji was already analyzing how he would respond to that attack. Likely, he'd have to use Kaden. Dodging wouldn't be easy. Tenton wasn't surprised that Guy came out unscathed. She followed up by tossing a special shuriken. Guy instinctively blocked it with a kunao, but to his surprise, it exploded into mist, enveloping him in a cloud. He only inhaled a little before realizing something was wrong and immediately held his breath. What kind of shuriken is that? Totally unpredictable. Then more shuriken dropped around him, embedding deep into the ground. With a clack-clack sound, hooks sprang out, sending wires that latched onto his tight-fitting jumpsuit. He was momentarily entangled. This was the moment Tenton had been waiting for. She pulled out another scroll and quickly formed hand seals. Take this falling boulder. A massive boulder the size of a house suddenly appeared above Guy's head. In a panic, he tore himself free and struck upward with full force, shattering the rock. Still unfazed, Tenton charged forward with a kunao and clashed with Guy in a blade lock. Then, from her gloves, 4 wires shot straight toward Guy's face. Whoa! A sneak attack too. Guy bent backward into a bridge to dodge the wires, but Tenton seized the opportunity and landed a kick to his stomach, sending him tumbling. Lee was dumbfounded. Niji grew more serious. Tenton's performance was beyond expectations. Guy looked disheveled but wasn't really hurt. He stood up and gave Tenton a thumbs up. Tenton, you've got Chunin level strength. Well done. Tenton didn't gloat. How much of your strength were you using? Guy chuckled but didn't answer directly. Let's just say I wasn't using my full power. But I can confidently say you're definitely Chunin level. As for Jainin, probably not yet. But if it came to running away you'd stand a chance. I see. So I've still got a long way to go. Tenton wasn't satisfied. But she wasn't discouraged either because she hadn't even used her trump cards. If just her tricks could reach Chunin level, then using her full power might make her a match for a Jainin. With more time, she'd definitely become an elite Jainin. Guy was very pleased with his students. You're all doing great. It's getting late, let me treat you to some barbecue. Starting tomorrow, we begin missions. Niji, however, gave Tenton a serious look. He was certain Tenton was a formidable rival. He'd have to find time to challenge her one day. Chapter 46. At the time of the senior graduation, the other grades were coincidentally on break. Right now, Natsuki was playing Ninja Killer by the river with his friends, but he seemed a bit distracted. Over the years, he never really had the chance to meet Might Guy, either they simply hadn't run into each other, or the timing just wasn't right so it kept getting delayed. And the key to that connection was always through Tenton. Of course, he truly cared for Tenton, but because of his appearance, she had changed. Tenton was now incredibly strong, which might very well impact the original storyline. If Tenton didn't end up in Guy Sensei's team, Natsuki figured he might be in trouble. Natsuki, worried about Tenton. Ino glanced at him and said, "You know better than anyone how strong she is. What are you even worried about? Focus on the game." Sakura, ever the good friend, tugged at Ino's sleeve. "Ino, give it a rest. Natsuki and Tenton have been together for years now. It's normal for him to worry about her now that she's become a ninja." Thanks to Ino taking the initiative back then, the two of them had finally buried the hatchet. Now, their relationship was really close. Though they still bickered over trivial stuff now and then, Sakura calling Ino a pig, and Ino retorting with "forward girl," their friendship remained strong despite the occasional squabble. Hearing this, Natsuki unleashed a flurry of "who built the damn cards," wiping out enemy ninjas, rogue ninjas, traitors, spies, and even his own teammates, leaving only his cage card alive, securing a win for the cage. Naruto exploded. "Natsuki! Who even plays like that? You even killed your own teammates, Datebao." But Shikamaru chimed in, "Still, he did win." "That's right. According to the rules of the card game, even if everyone died and only the cage remained, it still counted as a victory in the village defense mode." Of course, that ending didn't sit well with Naruto. But honestly, Naruto didn't have much room to talk. Natsuki looked at him and said seriously, "Naruto, when you were the cage, you accidentally took out your teammates more than once. Why are you yelling at me?" Naruto was stunned, speechless, guilt flooding his face. He had no ground to stand on. Then Shino spoke up with a fair point, "Naruto, in the end, it's just a game. In the pursuit of victory, any tactic is allowed. But in reality, Natsuki values his comrades deeply and would never do that. It's you who's gotten too obsessed with the game, and now you're struggling to separate reality from fiction." With that one statement, all eyes turned to Naruto. He scratched his head awkwardly. Yet, he had gotten a bit too into Ninja Killer. Especially the thrill of playing the cage. Analyzing Naruto's psychology made things clear. He was always the dead last. Add in the Nine Tails chakra constantly messing things up, and he could barely control his chakra. Becoming Hokage someday? Not likely. Heck, just graduating might be hard. At times like this, he needed an escape. In the original story, there wasn't one. But now, there was this card game. As long as he was in the game, Uzumaki Naruto had a shot at becoming Hokage. But now that Shino had called him out on it so directly, he felt a bit embarrassed. Natsuki calmly gathered up the cards. Naruto's showing some serious symptoms. From now on, no one play cards with him. Let's wait a bit and see how he does. Everyone nodded in agreement. While Ninja Killer was fun, they weren't addicted. At the very least, their studies and training still came first. Plus, their parents kept an eye on them, so no one really got that into it. Naruto's situation was a bit unique, which is why he ended up so hooked. That kind of behavior couldn't continue, he needed to take a break. What? No way. Naruto panicked. But everyone really did stop playing. They started relaxing by the river, fishing, grilling fish, skipping stones, or just lying around. Even the soft-spoken Hinata blushed as she spoke up, and Naruto-kun, I also think why you re too into the game. Naruto scratched his head, giving a sheepish grin. I'm pretty lame, hey? Everyone's doing this for my own good, I get it, Date Bayo. Don't worry, I can handle it. He said he could handle it, but his eyes kept drifting toward the pile of cards nearby. Yet, his condition was pretty bad. Natsuki sighed. If this future savior ended up a burnout because of a card game he invented, and no one was left to fight Kaguya, that'd be a serious problem. Sure, Natsuki was confident he could defeat the Otsutsuki himself, but better safe than sorry. So he pulled out a character card and waved it in front of Naruto's face. Naruto, guess what this is? Naruto's eyes lit up. That's the third grandpa's character card. Natsuki, you actually have one. Everyone's ears perked up. They instantly swarmed over. After all, even though the card game had been out for years, there were never any Hokage cards. Fans had begged for them, but the developers always refused. Bootleg versions existed, but no one took them seriously. Now Natsuki suddenly had a card for the third Hokage. It was a huge deal. Natsuki explained, the Hokage is the symbol of our village. Without the third's permission, he couldn't be made into a card. But recently, he gave me permission to create a character card based on him. The new set will be announced soon. Everyone will be able to buy it then. This one's a prototype, hasn't even been sold yet. Everyone stared hungrily at the card in Natsuki's hand. It was the only Hokage card in existence right now. Even though the third wasn't some pretty boy or drop-dead gorgeous woman, he was the Hokage, someone deeply respected by all. Who wouldn't want his card? Natsuki had said it would be released soon, but they all wanted to be the first to get their hands on it and flex it. Naruto quickly scooted up to Natsuki. Natsuki, can I have that card? Natsuki pulled the card back a bit. Not saying no, but you're too addicted to the game. If I give you this now, it might do more harm than good. Natsuki, I promise I won't be addicted anymore. Just give me the third grandpa's card. Naruto begged. You've got some nerve, Naruto. We want it too, okay. The others chimed in. Alright, calm down, everyone. Natsuki held up a hand. Naruto's the one with the most serious addiction right now, so I'll use this card to help him out. 1 month. If Naruto can go 1 whole month without playing cards, I'll give him this Hokage card as a reward. But if he can't, then someone else gets it. Everyone immediately looked at Naruto with devious grins. Even Hinata hesitated. Even if it was for her beloved Naruto-kun, she really didn't want to give up a Hokage card. Chapter 47. Heh, Naruto, how about we play another round? Kaiba said in an ominous tone. Yeah, since you love the game so much, we'll keep you company, Ino, and Sakura added with even more sinister smiles. No. I'm not playing any card games for the whole month, Date Bayo. Don't even think about tempting me. I will make it through this month without playing Ninja Killer, and Natsuki will give me the third grandpa's character card, Date Bayo. Naruto loudly declared his determination, plugging his ears so no one could sway him. With no other choice, everyone turned their gaze toward Natsuki. Natsuki gave them a reassuring look and gathered everyone aside to whisper, the Hokage-sama has already agreed 1 month from now, the third Hokage's character card will be released to the public. So you'll all be able to buy it then. Naruto's addiction is serious, and that's not a good thing, so we're giving him a cooling off period. Everyone nodded, understanding it was for Naruto's own good. Plus, once Naruto finally gets the Hokage card a month later and finds out it's already on sale everywhere, that reaction would definitely be something to see. Shikamaru, ever the curious one, peeked at the Hokage card stats and noticed it was based on the Professor of Ninjutsu title. That meant any of the 5 basic elemental jutsu could be used with just a single card completely overpowered, even more than Sharingan or Byakugan. But then again, it was a Hokage card overpowered was to be expected. If the Hokage wasn't powerful, how could they be the village's cornerstone? Shikamaru even suspected that the third allowing Natsuki to create this card was a PR move to promote the image of the Hokage. After all, Ninja Killer had become insanely popular over the years. And wouldn't you know it, Shikamaru hit the nail on the head. Hiruzen had indeed recognized the card game's promotional power. That's why he personally approved the inclusion of a Hokage card, though only his Hokage card, since he was still in power. The other Hokage cards? They had been made too, but only one of each existed and they were still in Hiruzen's possession. What's more, the design of the third's card was reviewed and approved by Hiruzen himself. That mastery of all 5 nature transformations? Yeah, that was his idea. The overpowered design? All his narcissism, Natsuki had nothing to do with it. In fact, Danzo had already heard of the Hokage card and personally cursed Hiruzen out to his face, calling him shameless. Too bad the crowd didn't get to see that you regret eyeshadow drama unfold live. That would have been hilarious. In any case, the card lineup needed a refresh to keep players buying. This update wasn't just adding the Hokage card, other heroic characters were getting cards too. The big reveal a month later would definitely bring in another wave of sales. This game was a money-printing machine. Natsuki's future father-in-law was raking in the cash just from card production alone. Still, the inclusion of Hokage cards could lead to power creep. For now, things were under control since only one Hokage card had been added, and everyone accepted the Hokage's strength anyway. But the moment first, second, and fourth Hokage cards got released, people would be fighting over who was stronger. Just wait, that would become the hottest topic around. Anyway, back to the present. To avoid triggering Naruto's card game cravings, everyone refrained from playing. But watching Naruto looking like he was going through withdrawal, Natsuki decided to give the guy something else to do. So he called him over. Natsuki, what is it? I'm telling you now, I'm not playing any card games, date bayo. Naruto said through gritted teeth, not even daring to look Natsuki in the eyes. Relax, you look miserable. I'm giving you something else to focus on. Natsuki said as he began walking up the side of a tree. See this? This is only possible through fine chakra control. Your chakra control is terrible, so try learning how to tree climb. Once you master that, you can move on to water walking. Once your chakra control improves, using the 3 basic techniques will be no problem. As he spoke, he casually reached the treetop, even walking upside down on the underside of a branch. Then, with a light jump, he landed on the surface of the river, walking across the water as if strolling through a garden. Naruto's jaw dropped. That's amazing, date bayo. So climbing trees and walking on water can help with chakra control? Alright. I'm in. Before Natsuki could even guide him, Naruto was already trying to gather chakra under his feet and walk up the tree. As expected, he slipped and fell. He kept trying, over and over, each time ending in failure. The others came over and couldn't help but laugh at his pitiful attempts. Kaiba laughed the loudest. Pfft. Naruto, your chakra control is so bad you can't even climb a tree. Shikamaru and Shino exchanged glances but said nothing. They were sharp enough to know more about Naruto's background and could probably guess why he struggled so much. That's why they held their tongues. Koji munched on snacks as he casually said, pretty sure this is basic stuff. My family made me learn it when I was little. Ino and Hinata nodded. They both came from ninja clans and had grown up being guided and taught chakra control. It would be super embarrassing to graduate and still not be able to tree climb or water walk. Sakura blushed a little. Wait, this is basic? I didn't know that. Then she tried channeling chakra to her feet and walked toward a nearby tree. To everyone's surprise, she climbed up to the treetop with ease. Immediately, she was brimming with confidence. Doesn't seem that hard. That just means your chakra control is very precise, Natsuki explained. Also, there's another factor, your chakra reserves. If we compare the human body to a container and chakra to water, then Sakura, your chakra is like a cup of water, while Naruto's is like a whole swimming pool. That makes it easier for you to control. Nani? You could explain it like that. Sakura's freshly inflated confidence took a hit, but she had to admit Natsuki made a lot of sense. A cup of water was easier to control than a pool. Even if she had better control than Naruto, she couldn't get cocky. Having less chakra meant less room to grow. If Naruto eventually learned control, he'd take off like a rocket and surpass most of them easily. Naruto heard this and broke into a dumb smile. So my chakra is that huge? Hey, that means I do have something good going for me. Ino rolled her eyes and snapped on Sakura's behalf. What are you smiling for, idiot? Having lots of chakra doesn't mean squat if you're too dumb to control it. You'll still be the dead last. Naruto flared up. No way. I will control it. I'm gonna learn tree climbing and water walking super fast, date Bayo. Everyone else just chuckled. Sure, Naruto said he wanted to become Hokage. But so what? Who hasn't said big heroic stuff before? Chapter 48. However, Natsuki did believe in him. Naruto wasn't actually that dumb, especially when it came to training. What made him special was his perseverance, and in that regard, he did exceptionally well. Once Naruto learned tree climbing and water walking, the three basic techniques wouldn't be a problem. He'd definitely graduate with ease. But that also meant the original plot where Mizuki manipulated Naruto into stealing the scroll of seals might not happen. Without that event, Naruto might not learn the Tochikage Bunshin no Jutsu. And that technique? It stuck with him all the way until the battle against Kaguya. If Naruto didn't have it, he'd be in serious trouble, wouldn't he? Still, Natsuki remained calm. Since Hiruzen wanted to manipulate Naruto to make him loyal to the village, he'd definitely find some way to bind Iruka and Naruto together. Even without the stolen scroll incident, there would be other plans in place, and someone would definitely make sure Naruto learned a few important techniques. And if Hiruzen didn't make arrangements? Then they'd just wait until Tsunade took over, and Natsuki could suggest she teach Naruto herself. There were always more solutions than problems. It didn't have to follow the original timeline exactly. And right now, Naruto being addicted to a card game and neglecting his future was a much bigger issue than him not knowing the Tochikage Bunshin no Jutsu. That needed to be fixed first. In that regard, Natsuki felt some responsibility. So it was only right for him to intervene early and correct Naruto's path. Plus, things were about to get really fun. Once Team 7 was formed, Sasuke would find out he was the only one who hadn't learned tree walking or water walking yet. That would absolutely crush his ego. The second pillar wouldn't be able to stay cocky for long. But, as always, things rarely go as expected. It was getting late, and the group dispersed. But Naruto stayed behind, still training his tree walking. He'd already asked Natsuki for advice. Now it was just about grinding it out. He wasn't thinking about anything else, not even card games. All he wanted was to master climbing trees. Problem solved, his game addiction was gone. Then, out of nowhere, Sasuke showed up at the same spot and saw Naruto working hard. The entangled fate of Indra and Azura made the scene hard to define. Meanwhile, Natsuki had just arrived at the ninja tools store only to be suddenly hugged by a girl with twin buns. Natsuki, you're back. I've got great news for you. Tenton beamed with joy, her breath still carrying the smell of grilled meat. Had a good day. Natsuki ignored his future father-in-law's side eye and pulled Tenton straight into his arms. Super happy. My teammates are awesome, and our sensei is even better. And I did something for my most favorite boyfriend ever. Guess what it is? Oh? Then what did my absolute favorite girlfriend do for me today? Guess. You have to guess first. Tenton was clearly delighted, and her girlish side was on full display. She wanted to be pampered, and Natsuki knew better than to guess correctly, wouldn't want to ruin her sense of accomplishment. I really have no clue. Are you cooking dinner tonight? Hehe. Wrong. Tenton showed off her gleaming teeth. Guess what? My team leader is Guy Sensei. The one you said is the strongest. His fashion sense is kinda weird, but I think he's really powerful. And he's agreed to teach me the Hachiman Tonk. He even said he'd check your body condition too. If you're suitable, he'll teach you as well. Natsuki froze, then lit up with joy. Really? Tenton, you seriously brought me an incredible surprise. He'd been worried Tenton wouldn't end up on Guy's team, yet now she'd returned with this amazing news. The 8 gates. Natsuki had waited so long for this. He couldn't wait to learn it. Once he mastered the 8 gates, with his current physical strength, opening the 7th gate would be enough to fight cage-level opponents. When he graduated at 12, he could increase the weight in the gravity chamber, and his physical power would skyrocket. By then, opening the 5th gate would be enough to fight a cage, and the 7th? He could kick an Otsutsuki across the moon easy. So, what kind of reward is my most beloved boyfriend going to give his girlfriend? Tenten asked, blushing. Let's see. Natsuki glanced at his future father-in-law, then scooped Tenten up and carried her into the backyard. Although they'd been dating for years, they were still young. Hand-holding, hugging, and cheek kisses were the most they'd done. Their first kiss? Still untouched. Now that they were older, it felt like the right time. Ah! Tenten's first kiss tasted like grilled meat. The shopkeeper uncle pretended he didn't see anything. He'd long grown used to watching his darling daughter glued to Natsuki. Since Tenten had already chosen her man, he had no objections. He was just waiting for them to grow up so he could have grandkids. A long while later, the two came out red-faced, lips a bit swollen. The shopkeeper scolded jokingly, "What are you two standing there for? Go make dinner already. Your old man's starving." Days passed, and the ninja academy resumed. Natsuki entered his final year before graduation, while Tenten officially started her ninja career. In the beginning, the missions were all D-rank: finding cats, chasing dogs, pulling weeds, farming, low pay and very annoying. Luckily, Tenten knew the cage bunshin no jutsu. She just sent clones to do the chores while she trained nearby. Seeing this, Niji followed suit, leaving poor Lee to weep with envy. Guy didn't stop them. D-rank missions weren't important, just needed to get done. How they got done didn't matter. Besides, D-rank missions had another purpose, to build trust and teamwork between squad members. That kind of bond took time and couldn't be rushed. One day, Niji approached Tenten. "Tenten, fight me." Tenten looked at the cold, aloof prince of their class, and even after comparing, still felt her boyfriend was the best. She didn't refuse. "Okay. Let's have Guy Sensei referee." Guy was more than excited. "Yosh! I shall be the judge of this youthful and passionate duel. Remember, it's just a spar, no injuring your comrades. I'll step in if necessary. Now, begin." As soon as the words left his mouth, Niji dashed forward with a ninja sprint. Tenten was unfazed. She pulled out 2 scrolls and used her self-created twin rising dragons. A dense barrage of ninja tools filled the air and rained down on Niji. His expression turned serious. He activated his Byakugan, took a stance, and as chakra began to swirl around him, an 8-trigram diagram seemed to appear beneath his feet. Then he spun in place, forming a half-spherical defense, deflecting all incoming weapons. Kaden. Ding. 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 The storm of ninja tools was rendered useless, scattered to the ground. But Tenten wasn't surprised. She quickly formed hand signs and charged forward with a kunao. Niji, just finishing his spin, also drew a kunao to counter. Yet through his Byakugan, he saw something strange. Tenten's chakra pathways were unusual. It was as if she had an extra pair of arms growing out of her back. Chapter 49. Guy saw it even more clearly after Tenten finished her hand seals. An extra pair of arms truly appeared behind her. She deliberately kept them hidden from Niji, and even with the Byakugan, it'd be hard to immediately figure out what was going on. Sure enough, right as their kunao clashed, the hidden hands behind Tenten's back whipped out 2 high-powered flashlights and shone them straight into Niji's eyes. Not good. Niji instinctively shut his eyes, but he already knew it was too late. The very next moment, one of Tenten's other hands launched a punch that landed squarely on Niji's shoulder, sending him staggering back. Nice one. Guy and the secretly slacking Lee couldn't help but cheer. Even though Tenten used a little trickery, that was par for the course with shinobi. Using tools and deception was perfectly normal, and no one thought it was underhanded. More importantly, Tenten's technique having extra hands emerge from her back was incredibly intriguing. The whole point was to be unexpected, and even someone from the Hyga clan, encountering this for the first time, could easily be caught off guard. Guy could already imagine it. If those hidden hands secretly performed hand seals, she could launch ninjutsu when her opponent least expected it. That would be super effective. Tenten pressed her advantage, but Niji had already recovered. Mainly because the flashlight's brightness wasn't strong enough. If it had been sunlight, Niji's eyes would have been dazzled for much longer. Besides, Tenten hadn't even used Solar Fist yet. That move was one of her trump cards and couldn't be used lightly. The flashlight was just a low-grade substitute. And since Tenten could use space-time ninjutsu, bringing along a few flashlights was no big deal. Jaken. Hakish Sanjani sh. Niji launched his counterattack. His palms moved with both power and finesse, laced with chakra. If they connected, they'd do serious internal damage. But Tenton already knew plenty about the Hyga clan and wasn't about to meet that head-on. She abruptly halted and raised her leg for a sweeping Rankyaku, sending out a 2-meter-wide crescent-shaped water blade that startled Niji into dropping flat to dodge. Tenton used the opening to pull out another scroll and summoned a massive boulder from it. Unlike Guy, Niji didn't have the raw power to smash through stone, so he had to dodge again. After just a few exchanges, Tenton had gained the upper hand much to everyone's surprise. Niji was more convinced than ever, Tenton was definitely a worthy opponent. All right, that's enough. Guy quickly intervened. Ahem. You both fought well. The Hyga's gentle fist lives up to its name, and Tenton, your performance was absolutely brilliant. But now Lee's slacking off from the mission, and that's not good. Let's all get back to work for now. You can spar again another time. Tenton was fine with that. Sure. Niji, we're on the same team, plenty of chances in the future. Niji nodded. Then let's do the mission. The group returned to focusing on the task at hand, and even Guy joined in, making conversation along the way to strengthen their bonds. Oh right, Tenton, Guy asked, that slash you kicked out earlier, was that ninjutsu? Probably counts as ninteijutsu. It's one of the rokushiki, created by my boyfriend. That move's called Rankyaku, Tenton explained without hesitation. Ninteijutsu, hey? Very impressive. Guy gave a big thumbs up. Definitely impressive, Niji added with rare praise. 6 styles, you say? So there are more. Lee's eyes sparkled. Tenton, after the mission, could you show us? I'm super interested. For someone like Lee, who couldn't use ninjutsu or genjutsu, taijutsu was everything. Even if Tenton's 6 styles were part ninjutsu, the taijutsu elements alone were worth studying. Tenton didn't refuse. Sure. I'll show you all just how powerful the ninteijutsu my boyfriend invented really is. Now, Tenton was constantly bringing up her boyfriend in conversation. That only made Guy, Niji, and Lee even more curious. At the Ninja Academy, outdoor sparring resumed. Before Naruto could even start shouting, Sasuke stepped forward first. Natsuki, fight me. Don't give me that chakra control excuse again. I know you weren't going all out. This time, no forfeiting. Either you beat me or I beat you. Yup, the second MC wasn't stupid. He'd probably been suspicious for a while, and now he just came right out with it. Natsuki figured the timing was about right, there wasn't much point in hiding anymore. He'd wanted to stay low-key before because his strength hadn't matured yet. He didn't want to attract the attention of shady types. But now that he had grown stronger, and his girlfriend could hold her own, he no longer needed to stay hidden. Showing off some strength would prove his value, and that would prompt Hiruzen to assign him a good Jonin sensei. And that was important. A good team leader could teach you a lot, both in technique and in ninja experience. Things worth learning. So Natsuki didn't mind making a splash before graduation. Let the old geezer really think through the team assignments. Even if it accidentally messed up the original team structure, so what? Natsuki was acting in his own best interest. That said, it'd be great to end up in a team with Shino. Not only because they were close, but also because Shino was dependable, and who wouldn't want a reliable teammate? Natsuki grinned. Ha, you caught me. I should explain though, see, I was worried if I showed off too much, all the girls would fall for me. But I've already got a super cute girlfriend, so that wouldn't be good. Now that you've called me out, I won't hold back anymore. Let's have a real fight. Of course, that excuse was meant for Hiruzen's ears. A bit flimsy, sure, but still acceptable. As long as Hiruzen understood that Natsuki had been hiding his strength for reasonable reasons, not shady ones, it was fine. Sasuke, satisfied, didn't care what the reason was. All he cared about was finally seeing Natsuki's true strength and testing himself against it. They made the seal of confrontation, then both pulled out kunao and faced off. Begin. As Irika's voice fell, Natsuki charged first, clashing kunao with Sasuke. Then, in the very next instant, Natsuki did something that stunned everyone. He raised his left hand and rapidly formed a few seals before casting a jutsu right in Sasuke's face. Suten, Suidama. Water release, water bullets. Boom. 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 3 water balls, each the size of a human head, blasted from Natsuki's mouth. Sasuke managed to dodge sideways, but one ball hit a tree behind him and shattered its trunk on impact. While Sasuke stumbled, Natsuki followed up with a kick, sending him tumbling across the ground. Gasp! That was insane. Everyone watching felt their scalps tingle. Who would have thought Natsuki, with that honest-looking face, had been hiding such terrifying strength all this time? Chapter 50. Single-handed hand seals. Sudden ninjutsu. Especially the single-handed seals, those weren't something just anyone could pull off. And yet Natsuki could do it. That was insane. Even Iruka was left speechless. He never imagined there was a hidden genius like that in his class. Sure, he'd always thought Natsuki was pretty capable. After all, Natsuki had often beaten up Sasuke, the so-called genius of the Uchiha. But because Natsuki always claimed his chakra reserves were low, Iruka had simply assumed it was unfortunate. Turns out, Natsuki was just pretending. And not only that, he was actually more talented than Sasuke. Especially the single-handed seals, that was a hallmark of a genius among geniuses. Even someone like Kakashi, known throughout the village, probably couldn't do that. No, this can't be kept quiet. I need to report this to the Hokage right away. A talent like Natsuki must not be overlooked. Iruka resolved, planning to head straight to the Hokage's office after class. Meanwhile, Sasuke stood back up slowly. His side still ached. Clearly, that kick from Natsuki had some serious force behind it. But rather than angry, Sasuke looked excited. He knew Natsuki had been holding back, but he hadn't expected this single-handed seals. He hadn't even heard of them before. All the better. He'd defeat this hidden prodigy and bring glory to the Uchiha name. Katon, Gaki no Jutsu. Sasuke swiftly formed hand seals and spat out a massive fireball, several meters wide. It sent a shockwave of heat that stunned the younger students. But everyone knew, even though it looked scary, the Gaki no Jutsu often wasn't lethal. Natsuki didn't dodge. He quickly formed a few seals, then let the fireball swallow him whole. Several students screamed, but the more clear-headed ones didn't panic. They didn't believe Natsuki would just stand there and take the hit. Iruka hadn't moved either. Sasuke knew this too, so he looked left, right, even up, but couldn't find Natsuki. Below you. Doton, Shinjei Zansha no Jutsu. Natsuki's voice rang out. 2 hands burst from the earth, grabbed Sasuke's ankles, and yanked him down, leaving only his head sticking out of the ground. Then Natsuki emerged from the dirt, holding a kunai to Sasuke's neck. Damn it! I lost. Sasuke admitted defeat, unwillingly. The blow to his pride was clear. He hadn't realized the gap between their true abilities was this big. And seeing Natsuki so composed afterward made it even worse. Natsuki hadn't even used full strength. He was on another level. Iruka quickly stepped forward. The match is over. Natsuki wins. The class fell into stunned silence, then burst into applause. Even the girls couldn't help but clap. Natsuki had won so flawlessly, so decisively. The so-called genius Sasuke didn't even stand a chance. This was a textbook case of a civilian upending a noble genius. Impossible not to admire. Even Sasuke's usual cheer squad had nothing to say now. All they could do was quietly worry about their precious prince. Natsuki reached out, pulled Sasuke from the ground, exchanged the seal of reconciliation, and turned to leave. Sasuke suddenly asked, "Natsuki, why are you this strong?" Natsuki paused and looked back seriously, meeting Sasuke's gaze. "I trained to protect Tenton, and also to protect friends like Shino, Shikamaru, and Chiji. I pushed myself to grow stronger. I didn't inherit any special family jutsu, so I had to study and think harder than everyone else. I practiced precision chakra control. I even borrowed ninjutsu scrolls from Shino to learn more. I grew strong to protect. What about you?" "Me? I want revenge." Sasuke's expression darkened, but he said nothing. Instead, he asked, "How did you do single-handed hand seals?" Natsuki didn't hide it. "If your chakra control is precise enough, single-handed seals aren't that hard. I heard the first Hokage could just clap and summon anything he wanted. He didn't even need seals. What I did is nothing compared to that." Everyone fell silent. Yeah, the logic made sense, but comparing yourself to the first Hokage? That was a bit thick-skinned, don't you think? Sasuke, however, suddenly had a spark in his eyes. So precise chakra control, that's trained through tree walking and water walking, right? How'd you know that? Natsuki was surprised. He was looking forward to seeing Sasuke embarrass himself during Team 7's early training. But Sasuke didn't answer. He wasn't going to admit he'd secretly watched Naruto train. Now that he had what he wanted, he left the field without another word. Natsuki didn't press the issue either. It didn't really matter. Plus, what he'd told Sasuke just now was heartfelt but also said intentionally for Irika's ears. He was sure Irika would pass it on to that old geezer Hiruzen. Given how scarce talent was in the village these days, the third Hokage would likely be very willing to cultivate a young prodigy who could do single-handed hand seals. And he was right. After class, Irika rushed to the Hokage's office and delivered his report about Natsuki. Hiruzen was stunned. He immediately pulled out Natsuki's file, scanned it top to bottom, then questioned Irika in detail about Natsuki's past performance. Only after a long silence did Hiruzen sigh. I misjudged that boy. This kid is smart, he knows how to hide his talents. Maybe he understands the saying, the tallest tree catches the most wind. Or maybe he was just trying to keep his girlfriend safe. But his background checks out. He's a positive influence spreading the will of fire through his card game, befriending many clan heirs. Even if he's hiding something, I don't believe he'd harm the village. To grow strong to protect. Had. Well said. It's been a long time since a talent like this appeared. We must nurture him, he'll be a key asset to the village. As Hiruzen pondered, he pulled out a draft of team assignments he'd been mulling over. Originally, he was going to assign Natsuki to any random jonin. But now? That'd be a waste. He needed a good teacher, someone who could truly help Natsuki grow. Of course, Hiruzen also had reasons he didn't say aloud. For one, Natsuki's relationship with Tenton was a bond, a tie to the village. And Tenton's family were wealthy merchants with major holdings across the Land of Fire. If Natsuki married into that family, his future would be set. As long as he wasn't an idiot, he'd never betray Konoha. A genius loyal to the village? That's someone you invest in. Naturally, just in case, he still ordered the ANBU to conduct a deep investigation to rule out any chance that Natsuki was a spy. Oh, and make sure someone keeps an eye on him. Don't let Denzo make a move. Hiruzen knew his old war buddy all too well. If Denzo found out about this kind of talent, he'd definitely want to snatch him away. But this time, Hiruzen was wrong. When Denzo received Natsuki's file, he just cursed under his breath and put it away. Not because he'd changed, but because he had concerns. Chapter 51. Denzo wasn't exactly having a good time these days. Ever since the disbandment of Root, he barely had any men left under his command. Although all former Root members had been placed under tongue-sealing curses, Hiruzen had clearly anticipated Denzo's schemes. Not only did he scatter the Root members, but also assigned other ANBU to watch over them, even sending them on dangerous missions, frequently missions where they had no chance to communicate with Denzo. Because of this, Denzo's ability to make use of his old subordinates had significantly diminished. Furthermore, Denzo's notoriety and his involvement in the Uchiha clan's massacre had earned him the hatred of many noble clans. If he dared stir up trouble now, he would gain nothing but backlash. Someone like Natsuki, a genius who could perform one-handed seals, was certainly a person Denzo had his eye on. But the problem was, Natsuki got along way too well with the children of the major clans. He had even visited their homes as a guest and shared meals. He was acquainted with the clan heads of the Nara, Akimichi, and Abarame clans. How was Denzo supposed to make a move on him under those circumstances? And then there was one more thing. The ninja card game Ninja Killer that Natsuki invented had become insanely popular. Even the daimyo himself played the game and had asked for the name of its inventor. Denzo didn't dare make any reckless moves against Natsuki, and he knew full well that Hiruzen wouldn't let him either. Rather than end up looking bad, it was better to pretend he didn't know anything. Damn it! That cunning little brat! I should have investigated you long ago. Yes, had Denzo looked into him earlier, things would have turned out very differently. Back when Ninja Slayer hadn't yet become a hit, Denzo was still bitter about being beaten at the card table. If he had vented his anger at the little kid who invented the game, no one would have stopped him. But it was too late for regrets now. Humph. Once I become the 5th Hokage, that brat will be working under me anyway. And that evil Uchiha kid and the Nine-Tails brat too, they'll all be under the command of me, the 5th Hokage. Just you wait. The Hokage seat is mine. Ninja Academy, after school. Natsuki said goodbye to his friends and headed to the market to buy some ingredients. Tonight, he wanted to make a nice meal to reward Tenton, who had been working hard on missions. He also planned to make some meat buns for her, so she could have something tasty during missions. Tenton loved meat buns. As Natsuki was selecting ingredients, he suddenly caught sight of a white-haired man with glasses walking by with a warm smile. The man's gentle smile gave off a kind impression, and the forehead protector showed he was a proper shinobi. But what caught Natsuki's attention wasn't the man's appearance, it was that he recognized him. Yakushi Kabuto, the master of illusions. That's right. This guy was currently an undercover spy in Konoha. Kabuto was working under Orochimaru, infiltrating Konoha to gather intel on young shinobi as potential vessels for the Fushi Tensei, living corpse reincarnation, technique. He would appear in multiple Chunin exams over the next 2 years until Orochimaru chose Sasuke, triggering the Konoha Crush plan. Kabuto would play a major role in that operation. So, was he passing by deliberately to observe Natsuki, the newly revealed one-handed seal prodigy? Or was it just a coincidence? To be honest, Natsuki didn't really know how to judge Kabuto. The guy was a genius and a tragic figure, but also someone who had hurt many. This world was twisted, many things couldn't be easily judged in terms of right and wrong. In any case, if Kabuto dared to target him, Natsuki would never let it slide. As for the Konoha Crush plan, he would try his best to stop it. Whether Hiruzen lived or died didn't matter to him, but Tenton's family had a lot of businesses in Konoha, he couldn't risk them being caught up in the chaos. After Kabuto left, Natsuki lost interest in shopping. He quickly grabbed some fresh ingredients and returned to the ninja tool shop. A few days later, Team Guy was finally taking a rare break from missions and was focusing on a training session instead. With Guy Sensei's approval, Tenton brought Natsuki along to observe. Natsuki came prepared with a big spread of home-cooked food. Training with Team Guy was intense. Compared to flashy gifts, good food was way better. Soon enough, Natsuki and Tenton arrived at the training ground. Lee and Niji were already hard at work while Guy provided instruction nearby. Guy Sensei, Niji, Lee, we're here. Tenton called out. She introduced him, this is my boyfriend Natsuki. You might have heard of him, our shop sells the Ninja Slayer card game, and he's the one who made it. Hey? Ninja Slayer was made by Natsuki. Hey? The shop selling Ninja Slayer is yours. Guy and Lee clearly had different priorities, but both were now curiously sizing up Natsuki. Even Niji was curious. Tenton had once said Natsuki was stronger than him. That meant he might be a worthy rival. He was already thinking of sparring with him to gauge his strength. Natsuki quickly greeted them. Nice to meet you, Guy Sensei, Lee, Niji. I brought some food, why don't we all have a bite? Training is exhausting, gotta keep your energy up. I brought lots of beef, I'm sure you'll love it. Beef rich in protein, the favorite of taijutsu users. Even someone like Guy, a Jainin, didn't often get to enjoy beef. Soon, with Tenton's help, Natsuki laid out a table and served up braised beef and other dishes. The group dug in, and both Guy and Lee were soon singing praises with greasy mouths full of food. By the way, Tenton said you are interested in learning the Hachiman Tonk, 8 Gates released formation, Guy said between bites. As I told her, learning the 8 Gates isn't easy. It requires an incredibly strong body. Let me take a look at your physical condition. If it's not up to par, no matter how tasty your beef is, I'll have to refuse. Natsuki replied confidently, Guy Sensei, feel free to check. My body's no weaker than yours. Guy didn't hesitate. He started feeling around Natsuki's muscles. After a few pinches, he couldn't help but exclaim, wow, your muscles are tight, there's real power here. You must have gone through intense, youthful training. Very good. Your physical condition is excellent. You pass for now. But next, let's have a youthful showdown. I need to see if your strength is all show and no substance. All right. However you want to test me, Guy Sensei, I'll take it on. Natsuki was full of confidence. After all, he had trained for years under increased gravity, paying close attention to body maintenance. Not only was his strength formidable, but his body was also virtually free of hidden injuries. If he wasn't qualified to learn the 8 Gates, then Lee wouldn't be, either. Once they were done eating and had a bit of time to digest, Natsuki and Guy stood facing each other. Lee was the referee. Tenton watched nervously from a distance. She believed in Natsuki, but still this was Guy Sensei, an elite Jonin. Not someone easy to handle. Begin. At Lee's shout, Natsuki vanished from the spot in a flash. Chapter 52. TL, from now on, I'm going to translate the jutsu in Romaji and English. Begin. So fast. Niji and Lee were both shocked. Guy also focused his energy, suddenly grounding himself in a solid horse stance. He raised his right arm to block bang, Natsuki's whip-like leg slammed into Guy's arm, and the sweeping wind from the impact sent stones and dust flying from the ground. Even though Guy had braced himself in time, the force still pushed him back several meters. Nice power. Keep going. Guy was clearly pleased. He immediately retaliated with a sweeping kick of his own. Konoha Daisen, Leaf Great Whirlwind. Bang. 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 Their fists and legs collided again and again, producing thunderous booms. The sheer force of their blows created shockwaves that made the air tremble and kicked up more dust and debris. The two of them darted through the swirling sand and rock, their movements so fast that only Niji could track them with his Byakugan. Way too fast. There's no way to follow with the naked eye. Natsuki didn't use any ninjutsu either. Since Guy wanted to test his physical strength, he would go with pure taijutsu. Over the past few years, Natsuki hadn't just been delivering milk, digging, and mining inside the gravity training room, he had also been relentlessly honing his strikes. The techniques taught at the academy had long become insufficient, so he turned to the library, digging through books for detailed records of hand-to-hand combat techniques to continue improving. In truth, learning moves was also about learning how to generate and apply force. Many techniques gained their power not just from raw strength, but from mastery of kinetic principles, making movements powerful, efficient, and fluid. This formed what people called a fighting style. To put it in gaming terms, it's not just about maximizing damage, you also need proper cooldown management and fluid combos to ensure continuous attack cycles. Through years of training, Natsuki had developed his own personal fighting style. Without even using Rokushiki, 6 powers, he was far from weak. But he still needed polishing and, more importantly, real combat experience. Going up against a taijutsu specialist Jonin like Guy, it was only natural to be outmatched. But Natsuki had incredible stamina and didn't fear taking a beating. After half an hour of intense combat, the taijutsu bout finally came to a satisfying end. Guy wore a radiant smile, clearly very satisfied with Natsuki's physical condition. He also saw that Natsuki had solid battle instincts, able to improve during combat and gradually cover up the gaps in his technique. Such a promising student aspiring to learn the Hachiman Tonk, 8 Gates released formation? Guy certainly wouldn't turn him away. As for Natsuki's character, Guy trusted his intuition. Or rather, he trusted fists and kicks. True men speak through battle. Guy believed every punch and kick Natsuki threw was filled with determination and sincerity. And over the past few days, after learning more about Tenton, a kind, smart girl, Guy figured that anyone she liked couldn't be a bad person. Assessment complete. Ha ha ha. Now that's youth. Isn't it, Natsuki? Guy gave him a powerful thumbs up, his teeth gleaming. Oh! What a passionate and youthful fight, Guy Sensei. Natsuki gave a thumbs up too. Tenton, however, felt like alarms were going off. She had a horrible feeling her boyfriend was getting converted by this Kappa sensei. This was going south fast. She wasn't planning to marry a Kappa. Unfortunately, Guy wasn't done yet. He suddenly asked, Natsuki, you want to learn the 8 gates to grow stronger. But why do you want to become strong? Natsuki understood that this was another test. He looked Guy straight in the eyes and said, to protect Tenton. And to protect my friends. That's why I need strength. The path of a ninja is never safe. We'll face enemies someday, but if I'm strong enough, the people I care about won't be in danger. I believe in that. Guy gave a firm nod, then broke into tears. Thumb held high once more, he cried, well said. That's youth right there. Very well, I'll pass the secret of the 8 gates to you. Natsuki also gave a big thumbs up. Thank you, Guy Sensei. I won't let you down. Lee, beside them, cried even harder, Wah-ah. That was so moving and hot-blooded. Natsuki, you're amazing. Why are you all morphing into the same person? Tenton mumbled in exasperation. She was nearly brought to tears herself, but seriously, she didn't want her boyfriend to become another kappa. Fortunately, the mood soon returned to normal. Guy handed Natsuki a scroll. While it'd be ideal for me to teach you personally, you're not my student and I'm mainly responsible for training these three. So I'll give you the 8 Gates scroll. You're a smart one, you should be able to study it on your own. If you run into any trouble, just ask Tenton to pass along a message. Or wait until I'm free, and I'll help answer your questions. Natsuki accepted the scroll and bowed slightly. Thank you very much, Guy Sensei. Guy waved it off cheerfully. He was in a great mood after all, the 8 Gates now had another successor. He didn't care much about keeping techniques to himself. Besides, the origin of the 8 Gates was unclear. He'd learned it from his father, but even his father wasn't the original creator. Passing it down wouldn't cause any issues. And it wasn't like he was teaching it to someone outside the village. But Natsuki wasn't finished yet. He pushed his luck a bit further. Guy Sensei, I actually have another favor. I'd like you to introduce me to Kakashi Senpai. You want to meet Kakashi? Guy's eyes lit up. He's my eternal rival. You want to learn ninjutsu from him? You've got good taste. Kakashi's a genius known throughout the village. Natsuki shook his head. No, hear me out, Guy Sensei. Let me tell you my training plan. I've done some digging. Not just about your father, but also about Kakashi Senpai's father. Sakuma the White Fang of Konoha was once more renowned than the Sunin. His Hitaki Ry Kenjutsu, Hitaki-style swordsmanship, struck fear into all the shinobi villages. My plan is to master both the 8 Gates and the Hitaki sword style. That response caught Guy completely off guard. Niji and Lee exchanged looks, they had never even heard the name Sakuma before. Even Tenton was surprised. Natsuki had never brought it up, not Sakuma, not his sword style, not even the name Hitaki. But when she remembered the demon blade thousand-edge Natsuki had designed, she figured it actually made sense for him to pursue a powerful sword style. I didn't expect you to learn about Sakuma Senpai. Guy sighed emotionally. You're right. Back then, Sakuma Senpai's swordsmanship was absolutely terrifying. They called him the White Fang of Konoha. His reputation even outshone the Sunins and shook the entire ninja world. If you want to learn his sword techniques, I totally understand. If I had the talent for swordsmanship, I'd want to learn too. Guy, a veteran of that era, naturally had a deeper understanding of the White Fang's strength and renown. Though those days had passed, true power never fades with time. He thought of his dear friend Kakashi, who had abandoned the Hitaki sword style after Sakumo's death. A new successor of the blade might not be such a bad thing. Chapter 53. Once he figured it out, Guy felt completely enlightened. He nodded and agreed, all right. When I have time, I'll introduce you to Kakashi. But whether or not he's willing to teach you the Hitaki Kenjutsu will be up to you to earn. I understand. Thank you, Guy Sensei. Natsuki thanked him once more with sincerity. Then he looked up with a big smile. Guy Sensei, the 8 Gates are strong, and the Hitaki Kenjutsu is strong too. If I master both, I'll definitely surpass you and become the strongest shinobi in Konoha. Guy was instantly fired up. Good kid. That's the spirit. But if you want to surpass the blue beast of Konoha, you've still got a long way to go. Still, in honor of your youthful determination, I'm giving you this tight suit. As he spoke, he suddenly pulled out a green spandex suit from who knows where. The moment Natsuki saw it, his scalp went numb. Tenton couldn't take it anymore. She threw her arms out to block in front of Natsuki, absolutely not. I don't want my boyfriend turning into a kappa. But Lee looked extremely displeased. What are you saying, Tenton? This is Guy Sensei's acknowledgement of Natsuki's youth. And how does it look like a kappa? It's super cool. Guy loved that kind of recognition. Hearing this, he simply handed the spandex suit to Lee instead. Lee. Since Tenton won't let Natsuki wear it, I'll give it to you. I've seen your youth and passion too. Wear this and go chase your dreams. Ah. Thank you, Guy Sensei. Lee was moved to tears and hugged Guy tightly. Behind them, it was as if the scene shifted to a sunset beach, waves crashing against the rocks as the picture froze like a painting. Tenton's mouth twitched. She didn't even know where to start complaining. Fortunately, Guy Sensei didn't insist on Natsuki wearing the green suit. Otherwise, her boyfriend would have really become a kappa. Niji clearly wasn't used to this kind of scene either. He came from a prestigious clan where etiquette was everything, and every movement was expected to follow proper decorum. Now seeing his teacher and teammate both acting like such weirdos, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But at least he still respected Guy Sensei's strength. As long as he could become stronger under him, Niji was willing to acknowledge him. Still, there was something more important right now. Niji suddenly turned to Natsuki. Natsuki, Tenton's always talking about you, saying you're way stronger than her. I also saw your fight with Guy Sensei earlier. Even though it was only taijutsu, you were still impressive. Please spar with me. I want to see your true strength. Natsuki wasn't surprised by this. Geniuses always had their pride, especially someone like Niji, a rare talent of the Hyuga clan. Even though he had the caged bird seal, he was still confident in his abilities. Not being able to defeat Tenten had already annoyed him, and now Tenten was claiming Natsuki was even stronger? Of course Niji wouldn't take that lying down. Alright. I've always wanted to experience the strength of a Hyuga genius myself. Natsuki accepted the challenge. Then I'll be the referee. Guy quickly volunteered again. He was especially passionate about this kind of match between comrades because in his eyes, it was the very symbol of youth and hot-blooded spirit. Tenten had full confidence in Natsuki. Against Niji, she had to use her trump cards to have any chance of winning. But Natsuki was different. His strength was already close to a Jainin's level. She wasn't sure of the exact gap, but she was certain Niji wouldn't stand a chance. The two formed the seal of confrontation, then stood off against each other. With Guy's shout of begin, the match kicked off immediately. Soru. Whoosh. Natsuki vanished. Niji didn't panic. He had already activated his Byakugan. With the Byakugan, your movements can't escape my sight. The next second, Natsuki's whip kick swept toward him. Niji barely managed to block, but he clearly underestimated the force. He was instantly sent flying by the massive impact. The Byakugan was undoubtedly powerful, it could easily track opponents. But just because you could see it didn't mean your speed could match it. And seeing it didn't mean you could tank it either. Natsuki's speed and strength were clearly overwhelming Niji. Niji quickly realized this and grew more cautious. Inwardly, he marveled, and now he fully believed what Tenten had told him. Natsuki truly was stronger. Defeating him would be incredibly difficult. Natsuki saw Niji shifting into the stance for gentle fist, and without hesitation, he stepped right into the range of Niji's 8 trigrams circle. Niji didn't hold back either, he immediately unleashed his Hakurokuchian SH, 8 trigrams 64 palms. The gentle fist, infused with chakra, looked soft but could easily crush internal organs. But Natsuki calmly formed a few hand seals and his entire body suddenly flattened. Or rather, he became a two-dimensional paper-thin figure. Niji's 64 palms were fast and fierce, but the moment the palm winds neared, the paper-flat Natsuki fluttered away with the breeze, evading the strikes completely. That's Kami-e, paper drawing, from the Rokushiki. Tenten had already demonstrated the 6 powers before, so Guy, Lee, and Niji all recognized it. But back then, Tenten only demonstrated it, she hadn't shown its actual application in combat. Now that they were seeing it used effectively, they were all speechless. Breaking a thin, fluttering piece of paper is actually not that easy. Even for a strongman, trying to smash paper with full force isn't simple. It requires finesse. And Natsuki's paper-thin form wasn't just flexible, it was ultra-light. Even a breath could blow it away, let alone Niji's palm winds. At that moment, Niji found himself unable to land a single hit. Natsuki, however, seized the brief moment right after the 64 palms ended. His body instantly snapped back to normal, and both his fists turned jet black as he struck hard at Niji. Tekai Ken, Iron Body Fist. Take this. Niji sensed how fearsome those black fists were and didn't dare to block with his bare hands. He quickly drew a kunai to intercept. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out, with sparks flying. Natsuki's fists really were like iron blocks. And he didn't let up, his fists grew faster and fiercer. Niji had no choice but to go fully defensive. After over a dozen exchanges, Niji's disadvantage was becoming more and more obvious. Damn! This isn't working. Kaden. Niji spun rapidly, chakra bursting from his tenketsu to form a rotating hemispherical shield, trying to force Natsuki back and gain some breathing room. Natsuki did retreat a bit, but he also cancelled his iron body, quickly formed hand seals, and created a shadow clone. The clone immediately burrowed underground while the real Natsuki leapt high into the air. To attack from underground to break my Kaden? That's a smart move. Niji had to give credit where it was due. His hackish Kaden, 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven, could block attacks from all directions including above, but the ground beneath him was a blind spot. If Natsuki attacked from underground, he'd be forced to stop spinning. Chapter 54 Doton, Shinjei Zansha no Jutsu, Earth Style, Headhunter Jutsu. The shadow clone reached out from beneath the ground, but Niji had already timed it perfectly. He instantly halted his Kaden and struck downward with a single palm. Boom! The clone exploded beneath him. Meanwhile, Natsuki used jab, moonwalk, to run through the air and unleashed a flurry of Rankyaku, tempest kicks. The crescent-shaped slashes enveloped Niji completely right as he was in the cooldown phase after using Kaden. With no choice but to dodge, Niji gritted his teeth and rolled several times across the ground. He managed to avoid a direct hit, but his arm still got sliced by one of the attacks. And Niji knew it too. Natsuki could have used Rankyaku right when he struck the underground clone. If he had done that, Niji wouldn't have been able to dodge at all. It was clear that Natsuki held back. Rokushiki really was powerful. But then Niji shook his head no. What was powerful wasn't the Rokushiki, but Natsuki himself. Tenton also knew the 6 powers, yet when she used them, Niji didn't feel nearly as threatened. Maybe because she wasn't skilled at using them, or her movements were too rigid. It worked well enough against average ninja, but not against elite ones. In comparison, Natsuki had amazing combat instincts. He knew how to adapt in battle and didn't cling to just the 6 powers, he combined them with ninjutsu. If he had other techniques, he'd definitely incorporate those too. People like that, people who truly understood battle, were real threats. I lost. Niji admitted defeat calmly. This might have been the first time he'd ever conceded to someone his age. Strangely, it was like a weight lifted off his chest. Maybe the label of genius had been a burden all along. Never having lost to peers meant never finding a worthy rival and no clear way to improve. But now, someone younger than him and much stronger had appeared. It made life more interesting. There was another thing, too. He realized Natsuki wasn't from a noble clan, he was an ordinary civilian. And in that moment of admitting defeat, his long-held belief that fate couldn't be changed shattered. If even a civilian could defeat a prodigy from a great clan, didn't that mean he could take control of his own destiny? Thankfully, Natsuki had no idea what was going through Niji's head. Because if he did, he would have definitely told him, Niji, your original thinking wasn't wrong because I'm not a normal civilian. I'm a cheat character. Clap clap clap. Applause rang out. Tenton beamed with pride. Her boyfriend had just beaten the genius of the Hyga clan. She had every reason to be proud. Lee was even more fired up. Seeing someone like Natsuki, a civilian, defeat someone from a prestigious clan meant that anything was possible. That meant his dream could come true one day too. Guy was crying again for the youthful and passionate energy of these two youngsters. Natsuki landed from the air and exchanged the seal of reconciliation with Niji. He smiled and said, the gentle fist of the Hyga clan truly lives up to its name, especially Kaden. If I didn't know Earth style, I'd have no clue how to break through it. But Niji shook his head. You're being modest. I'm sure you had other ways. I believe that. You're not using your Byakugan to read my secrets, are you? Natsuki couldn't quite understand why Niji said that, but he figured it was because Niji acknowledged his strength. After all, when Niji recognized someone, he seemed to think they could perform miracles. Just like in the original story with Naruto. After losing to him once, Niji acted like Naruto was all-powerful. Every time a problem arose, he'd say, if it were Naruto, he'd definitely do this or that. It came off like forced praise, and honestly, it was kinda awkward. At least when Natsuki watched it in his past life, he found it pretty cringe. Because Naruto's performance was often pretty mediocre. Both frustrating and funny to watch. Alright, the hot-blooded sparring ends here. It's not too late in the day, so let's begin training. Natsuki, if you've got nothing else to do, feel free to join us. Guy hadn't forgotten his duties. Today's training session couldn't go to waste. Natsuki glanced at the sky and politely declined, I still need to go buy groceries and cook. Tenton's been training hard today, she needs a good meal to recover. Hearing that, Tenton blushed for once, though she couldn't help feeling proud too. This kind of affectionate show-off, honestly felt pretty nice. Guy didn't insist. Alright, go on then. Whenever you're free, I'll have Tenton let you know. I'll take you to meet Kakashi. Natsuki thanked him again, snuggled with Tenton for a moment, then turned and left. In truth, he was already itching to go. If Niji hadn't challenged him, he'd be in the gravity training room right now studying the 8 gates. And not long after he left, the intel was already delivered to the Hokage's office. Hiruzen quietly read the report brought by the ANBU while puffing on his pipe. I didn't expect it. That kid Natsuki is quite clever, not only wanting to learn the 8 gates from Guy, but also seeking the Hotaki Kenjutsu. If he actually masters both, he might be just as strong as Kakashi. Then Konoha will have another true powerhouse, no need to fear the threats from other villages. I also didn't expect him to already be this strong. Creating his own Rokushiki Taijutsu, and even defeating Niji, tisk tisk. What a prodigy! How should I arrange things for him? Well, if Guy trusts him, then there shouldn't be any issues. Guy may be loud and eccentric, but his instincts are razor sharp. If Natsuki had any problems, Guy definitely wouldn't have taught him the 8 gates. Still, there's no rush. Natsuki will eventually meet Kakashi. And Kakashi isn't easy to fool. If Natsuki can earn his approval, then it'll mean he's truly trustworthy. Only then can we fully invest in him. Let's wait and see. Hiruzen's heart was filled with anticipation toward Natsuki. In recent years, Konoha's strength had rapidly declined. Sakumo was dead. Minato was dead. Orochimaru defected. Tsunade and Jiraiya left. Even when Shisui finally emerged, he too perished. If all those people had survived, Konoha wouldn't be in its current state. Hiruzen wasn't blind to this reality, but he was getting old. Now, all he could do was hope the next generation would rise to the occasion. Luckily, this new generation had more than just Naruto, the Jinchuriki. There was Sasuke, Niji, all the heirs of the major clans, and now, one more, Natsuki. Not to mention Tenton, who also seemed pretty talented. At last, the hidden leaf was once again showing signs of revival. In a few years, Konoha could truly return to its peak. Before I die, I must restore Konoha to its former glory. I refuse to leave this world with only scorn and regret. With that resolution, Hiruzen picked up a new batch of ninja files. He needed to carefully decide who would be the best Genin to mentor Natsuki. Also, he had to keep an eye on Danzo. He couldn't let Danzo corrupt the village's promising seedlings ever again. Chapter 55. After buying all the groceries at the market, Natsuki returned straight to the ninja tool shop. The shop owner, his father-in-law, only gave him a single glance, said nothing, and pretended to mind the store. But clearly, he was waiting for something. Natsuki almost couldn't hold back a laugh. This man was a total girl dad. Of course he cared deeply about his daughter. But ever since Natsuki showed up, Tenton had started keeping certain things from her father. Especially after graduating and becoming a genin, she barely shared anything about her ninja life at the dinner table. The shop owner was worried but too proud to ask. His only hope for information was Natsuki. Natsuki smiled. Hey, Pops, I went to check. Tenton's team leader is really impressive, an elite genin from the village named Might Guy. He might look a bit eccentric, but he's passionate, sincere, and cares a lot about his students. Also, Tenton's teammates are very strong. One of them is a prodigy from the Hyuga clan, and the other one's great in frontline combat. He added, since Tenton is exceptional at throwing ninja tools, her team formation usually has the 2 teammates in the front while she provides support from the rear. So there's really no danger. The shop owner gave a small nod of approval. Having an elite genin as their team leader was indeed reassuring. And knowing a Hyuga prodigy was one of her teammates made things even safer. After so many days of worry, he could finally breathe a little easier. But soon after, he felt a pang of sadness. His once sweet daughter used to tell him everything about her school life, but now she wouldn't even talk about her ninja work. It was all this brat Natsuki's fault. The shop owner shot Natsuki a glare. Got it. Now go cook. Tenton should be back soon. Natsuki, of course, didn't argue with his father-in-law. He picked up the groceries and headed to the kitchen. He had no time for a staring contest. He was itching to check out the 8 gates scroll. Rice on the stove, stew simmering. Finally, he had his hands free. Without hesitation, he took out the 8 gates scroll and opened it with trembling hands. The thing he had been dreaming of for so long, was finally in his hands. Inside was a diagram of the human body, pinpointing the locations of the 8 gates along the chakra pathway from top to bottom: gate of opening, gate of rest, gate of life, gate of pain, gate of limit, gate of view, gate of wonder, and gate of death. Beside the diagram, there were detailed notes on the technique to open each gate. This was a method to release the body's natural chakra restraints, allowing the user to explode with several times or even dozens of times their original power. It honestly felt more broken than the Kirin from Dragon Ball. Interestingly, everyone had these 8 gates. As long as one's physical strength reached a certain level, anyone could learn the 8 gates formation. The first 3 gates were relatively safe, they only caused fatigue after use, not physical damage. Starting from the 4th gate, however, the body would suffer increasing levels of injury. As for the 8th and final gate, once it was opened, you'd gain terrifying power, at the cost of certain death. Putting aside the death gate, the first 7 were already more than worth it. By enduring the pressure and injuries, one could exchange it for overwhelming strength. Tenton's body has been strengthened by years of electric stimulation. Her physical durability isn't bad. Opening the 3rd gate should be no problem. Paired with her ninja tools, she should be more than capable of fighting elite Genin. But I'll need to remind her, only open the first 3 gates, nothing beyond that. Just in case, I'll give her 2 senzu beans. If she's forced to go beyond, she can do it as a last resort, but must eat a senzu bean afterward to recover. Sigh, being a boyfriend really takes a toll on the heart. Natsuki muttered to himself while thinking about his own situation. When he had sparred with Guy in pure taijutsu, he felt the Gap Guy was still far superior, not just in combat experience, but also in sheer physical durability. Which made sense. Guy had trained his body relentlessly since childhood, for decades without pause. Even with a cheat like Gravity Training Room, it was hard to surpass that kind of dedication in just a few years, especially since Natsuki was still only 11. That said, Natsuki's current physique was already extremely strong. If he opened the 7th gate, he could absolutely reach cage-level combat power. Still not enough. That's not what I'm aiming for. At the very least, by the time the 4th Great Ninja War arrives, I want to be strong enough to kick Madara's 6 paths form to death with just the 7th gate. My body's only 11 right now. After I graduate next year, I won't have to hold back physically. I'll max out gravity training, push my limits daily, and burn through senzu beans if I have to. I don't believe I can't make it. Natsuki set his goals firmly and read through the scroll again. Besides the human diagram and gate opening techniques, the scroll also included several moves like Konoha-sen, Leaf Whirlwind, Konoha Daisen, Leaf Great Whirlwind, Omote Renge, Front Lotus, Ura Renge, Reverse Lotus, Asa Kyojaku, Morning Peacock, Hiradora, Daytime Tiger, and more. But there were no records of Sekka's, Evening Elephant, or Yagai, Night Guy. Those were moves that required the Death Gate. Perhaps Guy didn't dare to write them down, or maybe he hadn't unlocked them yet. Some things, after all, could only be understood when one reached that level. The moves of the Death Gate were probably only realized after it was opened. Still, the principles behind the other techniques were clearly explained. The Lotus moves were all about explosive speed and unrelenting attack, little technique, just pure speed. Morning Peacock involved punching fast enough to create flaming shockwaves from air friction. Daytime Tiger compressed air into a single point to form a massive tiger-shaped air cannon. In short, using absurdly strong physical power to manipulate air, whether through friction or compression, to unleash devastating ranged or melee attacks. When Guy opened the Death Gate, he even distorted space itself. His power was that terrifying. No wonder Madara himself called him the strongest in taijutsu. He really almost died from that kick. If not for the cells of Hashirama keeping him alive, that would have been the end. When the time comes, I'll let Guy kick first, then I'll jump in and add a bonus kick to the head. Let's see if those cells can save you again, Madara. But man, the 8th gate is scary. I wonder if a senzu bean could save someone from it. Senzu beans don't seem to work on soul injuries. But the Death Gate mainly destroys the body, not the soul. So, if I hold a senzu bean in my mouth while opening the Death Gate, would I survive afterward? Natsuki seriously considered the possibility. If he were ever trapped in a no-win situation, he might try it. Also, he needed to find a chance to give Guy Sensei a senzu bean too. Tell him that if he ever opened the Death Gate, he must remember to keep it in his mouth. And when he roars, make sure not to spit it out, because that bean is a lifesaver. In the original story, Guy survived opening the death gate but ended up crippled for life. He barely showed up in Boruto. Truly a shame. Even just to repay Guy Sensei for teaching him the 8 gates, Natsuki wouldn't let him end up like that. Not to mention, Guy Sensei was Tenton's teacher. If something happened to him, it would break her heart. And that he would never allow. Chapter 56. By evening, Tenton returned in her usual valiant form. Though fatigue still lingered between her brows and her clothes were soaked with sweat, her energy was high. Clearly, she was still able to keep up with Guy Sensei's rigorous training schedule. In the original timeline, Tenton's physical endurance couldn't keep up initially. It took long-term training before she gradually adapted, increasing her chakra reserves substantially. During the second Chunin exams, she summoned a sea with a scroll, and by the fourth Great Ninja War, she wielded the Bashsen, banana fan, several times. Her chakra level was definitely on par with a Jainin. But now, Tenton's physical strength was far superior to her original counterpart. Once she had taken a shower, it was time for dinner. At the table, the shop owner wore an indecisive expression. He kept sneaking glances at Tenton, but seeing her eating so cheerfully, he held back and said nothing. Natsuki almost burst out laughing. Totally expected. Though he had already told his cheap father-in-law about Tenton's situation, the old man still wanted to hear it from her personally. After all, nothing sounded better than your own daughter telling you directly. Under the table, Natsuki quietly reached out and pinched Tenton's knee. Startled, she looked up from her bowl and glanced at her boyfriend, only to see him subtly nod toward her father with his chin. She followed his gaze and saw her dad's awkward expression, instantly getting the message. That's when Natsuki spoke up. Ahem. Hey Tenton, how was training today? Your dad and I were curious. The shop owner immediately perked up but then realized what Natsuki just said and glared at him sideways. Your dad, huh? You sure got comfortable calling me that. Thankfully, Tenton picked up the conversation immediately. Oh, training was tough, but I managed to keep up. Guy Sensei said sweating more in training means bleeding less on missions. Oh, and Dad, one of my teammates is a Hyuga prodigy. I fought him the other day, and guess what, I totally had him on the ropes the whole time. Suddenly, Tenton was talking non-stop like she'd gone back to being the sweet girl who used to share everything with her dad. The shop owner kept nodding, asking a few questions now and then, and couldn't stop smiling. His gaze toward Natsuki softened noticeably. This future son-in-law is actually pretty thoughtful. Guess I'll stop glaring at him so much from now on. After dinner, the sky had grown dark. Tenton glanced outside, then at Natsuki, her face showing rare hesitation. Natsuki noticed. What's wrong, Tenton? She leaned against his shoulder and said softly, You finally got the 8 gates scroll. I know you're dying to go home and train it, but it's dark out now. It might be dangerous. Her concern wasn't unreasonable. Since the Uchiha clan's downfall, Konoha's internal security had significantly weakened. Spies were everywhere, and reports of missing children weren't uncommon. So, Tenton had become extra cautious once night fell. She never let Natsuki walk home alone. But she also knew him too well. He had been dreaming of learning the 8 gates. Now that he finally had the scroll, of course he'd be itching to dive into it. She didn't want to stop him, but she couldn't help worrying. Even though she knew he was strong, concern was concern. Natsuki hugged her and playfully pinched her nose. Worrywart. Who said I'm going home tonight? Sure, I want to train, but I need to study the scroll thoroughly first. And tonight, we'll study it together. With your physique, opening the first 3 gates shouldn't be a problem. That's more than enough to deal with most enemies. Tenton finally relaxed, a smile blooming on her face. She immediately pulled Natsuki to her room, pushed him onto the bed, and jumped into his arms, pulling the covers over both of them. Natsuki was stunned. Tenton, wait, this is way too fast. You're only 12, I'm only 11, and even if your dad's dying to have a grandkid, this is... Stop daydreaming. Tenton shot him a glare. Didn't we say we'd study the 8 gates together? Get the scroll out. Oh, that's what this was about. Still, even if they were just studying, did they really have to share a blanket? Anyone would get the wrong idea. Natsuki wasn't about to object, though he certainly wasn't losing out here. He hugged her tightly, opened the scroll, and the two of them began studying the 8 gates together. Good thing he was still young, otherwise, temptation might have gotten the better of him. Then again, with her already in his arms, well, there were some perks to enjoy. Tonight's kiss tasted like mint, probably her toothpaste. A few days passed. Then came the first of the month. Natsuki had been waiting for this. Sure, he was eager to train the 8 gates, but he was also very cautious. Over the past days, he had memorized every detail of the scroll techniques, gate mechanics, everything. He even mentally rehearsed the routines, refining his understanding. All that was left, was for the special training lab to open tonight. He'd already informed Tenten ahead of time, so she wouldn't expect him home tonight. She knew he had a habit of pulling all-nighters for training on the first of each month, so she didn't ask questions. At exactly 7 p.m., Natsuki activated the entrance to the special training chamber. He didn't waste a second, he went straight into practice. 8 gates formation, first gate, gate of opening Kai. Buzz. It was like a shackle in his mind had snapped open. He could feel all the power in his body at his command. He mentally summoned a practice dummy and whoosh. Appeared before it in a flash, landing a powerful kick right under its chin that launched it into the air. Whoosh. He reappeared beneath it. This was Shadow Leaf Dance, the prelude to Front Lotus. Since he wasn't wrapped in bandages, Natsuki simply hugged the dummy from behind and began spinning it downward toward the ground. Omote Renge, Front Lotus. Boom. A crater appeared where the dummy was smashed, completely torn apart. But Natsuki wasn't satisfied. The Front Lotus is powerful, sure, but it has too long a startup. Doesn't suit me. Besides, I don't need to stick to the scrolls techniques, I should develop my own. The earlier gates mostly just boosted speed and strength. Techniques like front and reverse lotus were fast, sure, but not exactly complex. Natsuki's Rokushiki, 6 powers, could already achieve similar results. But the later gates were different, they involved manipulating air. By either friction or compression, they created devastating attacks. He could totally use that concept to develop new moves, maybe even something like Dragon Ball's Kikoho, Tri-Beam. The power potential was massive. That said, Natsuki would still learn Asa Kyojaku, Morning Peacock, and Hirudora, Daytime Tiger, first. Why rack your brain creating new techniques when great ones already exist? Plus, by mastering those moves, he could understand the key concepts: how to generate friction with speed, how to compress air properly to maximize damage. Once he grasped those fundamentals, creating new moves would be far easier. Great structures rise from the ground up. A house without a foundation is just floating driftwood, that's how it is. Second gate, Gate of Rest Kai. Third gate, Gate of Life Kai. Fourth gate, Gate of Pain Kai. Chapter 57. Natsuki pushed himself all the way to the fourth gate. The moment the Gate of Pain opened, he began to feel sharp stinging sensations throughout his body. His skin started turning red. But the power he gained was immense. With just a light stomp, he could create a deep crater beneath his feet. His movement speed became terrifying. Back during the Chunin exams, Lee opened the fourth gate to fight Gaara, scaring him out of his wits. Although Gaara was protected by his mother's Shikaku armor, his own reactions were too slow, he couldn't even track Lee's movements. If Lee hadn't been in so much pain from his own attacks, creating brief pauses, Gaara wouldn't have had time to activate his sand clone and would have been seriously injured by the Ura Renge. At the time, Gaara's strength was probably comparable to that of a mid-tier Jainin. Meaning Lee had briefly erupted with the strength of a Jainin. So what about me? If I open the fourth gate, do I have elite Jainin level strength? Though I'm probably not on the same level as Kakashi or Guy yet. Then let's keep going, after all, I won't die. Fifth gate, Gate of Limit, open. Sixth gate, Gate of View, open. The moment he opened the sixth gate, the pain intensified drastically. His whole body felt like it was being torn apart. If not for his absurdly strong physique, he would have been shredded already. Even so, it still required immense willpower to resist the excruciating pain. Wasting no time, Natsuki leapt into the air and began throwing rapid punches as instructed in the scroll. Each punch generated so much friction with the air that it looked like flaming spheres erupting in midair, like a peacock spreading its fiery tail. Beautiful, yes. But terrifying, especially if you were on the receiving end. Isn't that right, Kisame? Natsuki had launched Asa Kyojaku, Morning Peacock, once before and he was already addicted. He kept punching, wanting to master it fully. He couldn't die in here anyway, and with infinite stamina and chakra, he could spam it all he wanted as long as he could bear the pain. After an hour, he had to stop. It hurt too much. Even if his body wasn't damaged, the pain was very real. His body was steaming. He just couldn't endure anymore. Looks like I'll need to adjust my training plan, especially when it comes to pain resistance. Otherwise, opening the 7th gate might just make me pass out from pain. Natsuki made a mental note and rested briefly, then jumped right back in. The special training chamber was too precious to waste. Wasting even a minute felt like ruining a meal. Next, I need to get used to the earlier gates. I want to be able to open them instantly, not one by one. The delay wastes too much time. What if I miss an attack opportunity or get interrupted by an enemy? So over the next few hours, Natsuki did nothing but repeatedly open and close the gates. From gate of opening to gate of view, he opened and closed them again and again until he could activate them at will. By the time he could instantaneously open the 6th gate, there were only 10 minutes left in the special chamber. That's when a crazy idea hit him. Double the gravity. Gate of view open. Natsuki exploded with energy like a super saiyan. His skin flushed crimson, and his body glowed with a green aura. The increased gravity couldn't hold him down at all. Crank it higher. 7th gate, can I open it? Gravity up again. 7th gate. Gate of wonder, open. Buzz. A wave of unbearable pain consumed his body. Natsuki almost blacked out on the spot. But he bit down on his lip, forcing himself to stay conscious. Then, using the proper technique, he began compressing air into his fists, forcing it into the shape of a tiger. And then he punched. Hiradora, daytime tiger. Boom. It was as if the world itself cracked. And Natsuki, instantly passed out. He was ejected from the training chamber, drenched in sweat, lying motionless on his bed. When he came to, he saw Tenton sitting beside him, anxiously wiping his sweat with a damp towel. Shino stood silently nearby, worry clearly visible even behind his sunglasses. Natsuki, you're awake. You scared me half to death. Tenton was already crying. She threw herself into his arms. You were out for a whole day. Do you know how worried I was? The doctor said you fainted from pain, but you didn't have a single injury. What the hell did you do? Natsuki gave her a guilty smile and gently stroked her hair. Sorry. I didn't mean to make you worry. Shino spoke calmly, you didn't come to school today. We thought you overslept after an all-nighter, so I stopped by around noon. I used my insects to check on you. You seemed to be sleeping, so I didn't think much of it. But when I came back after school and you still weren't awake, I knew something was wrong. Tenton arrived just in time and opened the door. We rushed you to the hospital. So that's what happened. Natsuki looked around and realized he really was in a hospital. He truly had worried them. That final stunt, maybe he shouldn't have done it. It was way too painful. Once Tenton had calmed down, she stood with her hands on her hips, glaring, explain. Now. If you don't tell me everything, I won't talk to you anymore. Tears welled in her eyes again. Natsuki quickly sat up and pulled her into his arms to comfort her. Even Shino said, you really went overboard this time. I don't know what kind of research you're doing, but Tenton and I were seriously worried. Natsuki sighed. He thought for a moment, then lowered his voice. Shino, check if anyone's eavesdropping. Shino understood immediately. He sent out his insects to scout the area. After confirming the coast was clear, he nodded. Both he and Tenton turned to Natsuki, waiting. Natsuki changed his explanation slightly, actually, every month, on the night of the 1st, I enter a dreamlike space. In that space, I can't be hurt. I have infinite stamina and chakra. It's the perfect place to research ninjutsu, secret techniques, even forbidden ones. Everything I've developed so far came from there. Tenton and Shino found it hard to believe, but looking into Natsuki's eyes, they didn't see a single trace of deception. Tenton pressed, and this time. Natsuki looked a bit embarrassed. I was training the 8 gates. That place doesn't allow actual injury, but pain still exists. I tried to push myself to the 7th gate and even used Guy Sensei's ultimate technique Hirudora. The power was incredible. But the pain, it was real. I passed out. I'm really sorry I scared you both. I was terrified too. So that's what happened. Tenton believed him. She had secretly asked Guy Sensei about the 8 gates before. The first 3 were safe at most, they caused exhaustion. That was why Natsuki only allowed her to open the first 3. But from the fourth gate onward, the technique damaged the body. Only those with strong physical conditioning and immense willpower could endure the pain and survive the usage. Otherwise, the pain alone could overwhelm the mind. Chapter 58. Natsuki had only dared to push himself so far because in that special space, he couldn't be harmed. But he had overestimated his own willpower or perhaps underestimated the pain of opening the seventh gate. Either way, he had literally passed out from the pain alone. The cost of gaining great power was very real. Considering Natsuki's physical and mental strength, the level of pain needed to knock him out was unimaginable. Fortunately, he hadn't tried to open the eighth gate. If he had, he might have literally died from the pain. Tenton finally let out a sigh of relief, then immediately grabbed Natsuki's ear and twisted hard. "You reckless idiot! Do you want me to become a widow before I even get married? Are you gonna keep doing stupid things like this? Ow ow ow! I won't do it again. Easy there, wife. Wife your face." Tenton blushed fiercely and snapped at him, but seeing him act all dramatic actually made her feel better. Earlier, she had been genuinely terrified. Shino, meanwhile, quietly endured the incoming wave of lovey-dovey dog food. He was already used to it. Then he asked, "Natsuki, is the 8 gates really that powerful?" Natsuki answered seriously, "Very powerful. When I opened the 7th gate, I felt like even defeating the Hokage wouldn't be too hard. But with my current body, the 6th gate is my limit. I'll need to intensify my training. I want to one day be strong enough that the 7th gate can kick the Sage of 6 Paths to the curb." Kick the Sage of 6 Paths? That's one hell of a goal. But Shino didn't doubt him. His friend had always been mysterious. A person who could enter a special dream realm on the first night of every month and train with no risk, infinite stamina, and unlimited chakra. How could he not become insanely strong? Shino immediately felt a sense of pressure. His friend would definitely be ridiculously powerful in the future if he didn't grow stronger too. How could he be trusted to watch his friend's back? Just then, Shino's expression changed slightly. "Someone's coming." Natsuki and Tenton instantly stopped messing around. Moments later, the door opened. Shikamaru, Chiji, Ino, Sakura, Naruto, Hinata, and Kaiba came in. Even Sasuke was standing just outside in the hallway. All their friends had come. Ino grinned and teased, "We heard someone calling his wife from outside the hospital room." "Who was it? So shameless, even calling her wife." Natsuki and Tenton both blushed hard. They didn't care if Shino heard their flirting, but having the whole class hear it, that was embarrassing. "Ah! Tenton's blushing." Ino and Sakura giggled uncontrollably. "And so is Natsuki. Look at that thick skin turning red." Everyone laughed as they set down a fruit basket. Seeing that Natsuki was fine, they all relaxed. Shikamaru asked, "So what happened? We heard you passed out from the pain, but you don't look injured." Natsuki explained, "I was training a secret technique last night. The pain was so bad that I just blacked out." Everyone was stunned. For a technique to cause Natsuki to pass out from pain without leaving any physical injuries, it had to be something extraordinary. They hadn't realized Natsuki was pushing himself so hard. It seemed graduation was looming, and even Natsuki was starting to feel the pressure. Everyone else began to feel the same urgency. Shikamaru, Chiji, and Kaiba, all from noble families, started wondering if it was time to learn their clan's secret techniques. Ino and Hinata revealed that they had already been training theirs, just hadn't shown it off. Naruto, meanwhile, could only envy them all. He wasn't just jealous of Natsuki's secret technique, he was also jealous of his girlfriend. Damn it! We're the same age. How the hell did Natsuki already land a cute girlfriend like Tenton? And she even lets him call her wife. This world is unfair. Sasuke's eyes gleamed with focus. The pressure on him was even greater. He had just barely learned how to tree walk and water walk over the past few days. Compared to Natsuki, he was already miles behind. Now Natsuki was training powerful secret techniques? At this rate, he'd never catch up. Not that he had any obsession with defeating Natsuki, but if he couldn't even surpass someone his own age, how could he possibly defeat that man, his brother? "You're okay. Good." Sasuke muttered, then turned and left without another word. He had no time to waste. The others didn't linger either. After checking in and making sure Natsuki was all right, they all said their goodbyes and headed out. Even Shino left, giving the couple some space. Natsuki, however, had no intention of staying in the hospital. After getting checked by a doctor and confirmed to be fine, he left with Tenton and returned home. Just in time to bump into her dad, who was holding a lunchbox and about to head out. The shop owner blinked in surprise when he saw Natsuki. Reflexively, he hid the lunchbox behind his back. "Didn't they say you fainted? Why are you out of the hospital?" Natsuki grinned. "Sorry to worry you, Pops. It was just a side effect from training a secret technique. The doctor said I'm fine, just need to rest at home. You were coming to check on me? What's in the lunchbox? Let me see." Before the shop owner could respond, Natsuki had already snatched the box from his hands. The man's shoulders relaxed but he scowled. "That was for the cat." Natsuki was already eating. Yes, I'm the cat. Your cooking's great, Pops." The old man huffed and turned away, but there was a smile on his lips. Tenton saw it all and couldn't help smiling too. But deep down, a desire began to grow stronger. "I really want to grow up quickly, and marry him." For the next few days, Natsuki behaved himself and rested. The memory of the pain from opening the Gate of Wonder haunted him. He needed a few days to recover and revise his training plan. Currently, he had increased the gravity in the gravity training room to 8 times normal. His next goal was to raise it to 10. Don't underestimate 10 times gravity. Those online explanations claiming it's just like carrying 10 times your weight are completely wrong. Gravity and weight training are two entirely different things. Weight training just loads certain parts of the body. Gravity, however, affects everything. Your blood, your bones, your internal organs, even your brain are all under constant strain. It's not the same as simply lifting heavy stuff. When people ride elevators or roller coasters, even slight increases in gravity can cause dizziness. And that's just minor shifts. Simple math shows that the average person can only withstand 2 or 3 times gravity. At 5 times, most people pass out. Astronauts are more resilient, and they can momentarily withstand 10 times gravity, usually only during a rocket launch. Even in Dragon Ball, Goku found 10 times gravity incredibly difficult when he first arrived at King Kai's planet. That was after he already had power strong enough to destroy the Earth, and it still took him time to adapt to that level. As for 100 times gravity, he only achieved that on his way to Namek, and even then it pushed him to the brink. Afterward, he single-handedly crushed the Jinya force. Their captain could move at nearly the speed of light and still wasn't a match. That's going off topic a bit, but the point remains. Gravity training is insanely effective, but only if you do it within your limits. Chapter 59. Natsuki dared to raise the gravity level to 10 times because he had confidence in himself. But adjusting to it would take time, and even then, he was still far from someone like Son Goku who could destroy planets. That, of course, wasn't Natsuki's fault, it was the power ceiling of this world. Also, for the time being, he didn't dare to recklessly open the 7th gate again. Not a big deal if I don't open the 7th gate, Natsuki thought. I'll use the technique of Asa Kyojaku, Morning Peacock, with the 6th gate as a reference point to develop other moves. At the same time, I need to adapt to the rhythm of prolonged combat while in the 6th gate state. Asa Kyojaku was strong, but not always the best option. Developing other techniques would be useful, and even if the attempts failed, it would still serve as good training. After all, the Akatsuki and Uchiha Madara weren't foes that could be defeated easily. Long-term endurance was crucial. The 8 gates only granted short-term bursts of power. Once the user ran out of stamina, they'd fall into a dangerous disadvantage. Ideally, he needed to extend the duration of combat within the 8 gate state to become truly effective. Having made that plan, Natsuki finally allowed himself to relax. He had spent all these years constantly thinking about getting stronger, rarely enjoying any real downtime. Well, not entirely. Time with Tenton was always relaxing. Compared to being alone and constantly overthinking, having someone by his side brought him happiness. He was truly glad he had pursued Tenton. With her, he'd found a home in this world. Tenton was more than just pretty and cute, she was kind, thoughtful, occasionally sarcastic and funny, and she made him feel at ease every moment. Natsuki genuinely liked her and was determined to protect her forever. Guy's team has been established for a month. We're probably going to start missions outside the village soon. Time to prepare some gear for our family's little Dora la Explo Tenton. With that thought, Natsuki drifted off into sleep. Early the next morning, someone suddenly knocked on the door loudly enough to wake Natsuki. It clearly wasn't Tenton, she had a key. And it wasn't Shino, he'd just sent bugs inside. Who the hell is knocking this early? Natsuki opened the door with bedhead and bleary eyes only to see a certain spiky blonde kid staring up at him with hopeful eyes. He instantly deflated. Naruto, what do you want this early in the morning? I was dreaming about marrying Tenten and having kids. You ruined it. Naruto, however, was full of urgency. Natsuki. I've gone a whole month without playing cards. Doesn't that mean you should finally give me the third Hokage character card? Oh, right. That. Natsuki had honestly forgotten. Still not a good enough reason to be banging on someone's door at the crack of dawn. With a tired face, Natsuki retrieved the Hokage card and tossed it to him. Here. Take it and go. I'm going back to sleep. Naruto left happily while Natsuki was now wide awake. So instead of trying to go back to sleep, he decided to prep some field gear things like a flashlight, flint, raincoat, dried meat, hot sauce, anything that might be useful for camping outside the village. When Tenten arrived and saw him sorting through all that stuff, she looked puzzled. Natsuki, what's all this? Natsuki quickly pulled her over and gestured to the pile. Your team's been together for a month, right? I figured you'll be doing missions outside the village soon. So I'm prepping supplies you might need. Take a look, see what else you want, or just take it all. Your scroll can hold anything anyway. You know what, that's actually a good idea. We probably will be going out soon. Tenten didn't refuse. She opened a scroll and began sealing everything inside. Better to bring everything. You never know what'll come in handy. Once they finished packing, their eyes met. And then hug. Yup. Today's kiss tasted like meat buns. XXXX. Afterward, with their lips slightly swollen, Natsuki headed to the academy while Tenten went to the Hokage building. To her surprise, they really did receive a C-rank mission to eliminate bandits outside the village. She couldn't help but admire how on point her boyfriend's intuition was. Though they had a 30-minute window to go home and prepare after receiving the mission, being prepped in advance was obviously better than rushing. Tenten returned home, packed a few more things, informed her dad, and asked him to pass the message on to Natsuki. Then she headed for the village gate. Meanwhile, Natsuki had just arrived at class when he noticed Naruto slumped over at his desk, looking completely defeated. What happened to him? Natsuki tried to hold back a smile he could already guess. You already know, don't you? Shino's tone was as calm as ever. Naruto showed up this morning and started flaunting the Hokage card. But then everyone else pulled out their Hokage cards and a bunch of new character cards. That's when he realized the card set got updated yesterday and everyone else had already queued up to buy them. All his bragging amounted to nothing. Even Shino nearly cracked a smile. Naruto had spent a whole month suppressing his card addiction just to get that Hokage card from Natsuki. He even covered his ears when people talked about cards to avoid temptation, and in doing so, completely missed the update. Their classmates had played along keeping quiet on purpose so he wouldn't relapse. And that led to today's tragedy. It was a little sad, honestly, but also his fault. The kid was addicted. If they didn't intervene, he might have spiraled further. Natsuki, how could you do this to me? Naruto sulked over, his voice full of betrayal. The cards got updated and you didn't tell me. Natsuki feigned innocence. I did tell you a month ago. I said the Hokage gave me permission to sell these cards and that new characters would be released later. Wasn't I clear enough? You just remembered the Hokage card and ignored everything else I said. Naruto couldn't argue with that, but he still felt wronged. He had waited so long only to proudly wave around a rare Hokage card, thinking he'd be the center of attention, only to get clowned. He wanted to cry. Seriously? Hey, look on the bright side, you didn't have to pay for yours. Natsuki tried to console him. Sure, the Hokage card was free, but now everyone's playing with the new deck. My old cards can't even keep up anymore. The Ninja Killer card game was actually quite expensive. For someone like Naruto, who was already scraping by, buying a new set meant going hungry for a few days. Sure, his friends like Shikamaru and Niji would let him join their games, but Naruto loved pulling out his own cards and inviting people to play. That was about pride. Imagine going up to someone and saying, "Hey, wanna play Ninja Killer?" And they respond, "Do you even have cards?" That one sentence alone would crush Naruto's soul for the whole day. Chapter 60. For someone like Naruto, Natsuki truly felt helpless. He wasn't running a charity, after all. Giving away cards in the past was just to promote them. Now, there was no reason to give out anything for free. Besides, Natsuki suspected that Naruto's card addiction wasn't completely cured yet. Giving him new cards might only make things worse. So he pretended not to notice Naruto's plight and let the poor guy stew in frustration. Soon, the school day ended. Natsuki and Shino went to the ninja tool shop, only to find that his father-in-law said Tenton had already gone out on a mission. Ha, just as I thought. Good thing I prepared everything in advance. At least she won't be scrambling around, and it'll make things easier out there. Just as Natsuki predicted, Guy's team had barely left the village before it started raining. The mission had a deadline, so they couldn't delay just because of a little rain, but traveling while soaked wasn't a good idea either. That's when Tenton pulled out 4 raincoats and handed them out. With their gear on, the impact of the rain was reduced to a minimum. Though the rain still lashed at their faces, as long as their bodies stayed dry, there was no risk of catching cold or falling ill. By dusk, Guy's team was nearly at their destination. Tenton then passed out cups of ginger tea along with warm meat buns. Everyone immediately felt their fatigue melt away. Guy gave a thumbs up in approval. Summoning techniques are so convenient. Having Tenton on the team makes missions feel way easier. Mini Kappa number 2, also known as Lee, now proudly donning his green spandex, nodded excitedly. Totally. With Tenton around, it's like we don't even need to build a fire to get hot drinks. Plus, these meat buns are delicious. This feels more like a vacation than a mission. Even Niji gave a rare nod of approval. Tenton wasn't just strong, she was like a walking treasure trove. Having someone like her on the team was a huge advantage. Tenton, now setting up 4 tents, couldn't help but roll her eyes. Convenient, hey? Don't treat me like some tool. It's the space-time ninjutsu that's convenient, not me. Besides, all these raincoats and tents were prepared by my boyfriend. You lonely single guys can just keep being jealous. Wait a second, how did this joke turn into a personal attack? Can't we just have some friendly banter? The 4 of them didn't light a fire that night to avoid drawing attention. It was also too dark for a sneak attack, so they all crawled into their tents to rest and wait for dawn. In the darkness, Guy whispered, Tenton. I heard Natsuki passed out from pain recently. What happened? Tenton hesitated. She didn't want to lie, but she also didn't want to spill the truth. While she trusted Guy Sensei, she wasn't sure about Niji and Lee, especially Niji, who had the cursed seal of the caged bird on him. He didn't even have freedom over his own body, let alone the ability to keep secrets. Her boyfriend's cheat-like dream realm was better left unsaid. What else could it be? He overtrained. I gave him a good scolding when I got back. He promised not to do it again. Guy Sensei, if you get the chance, please lecture him too. He really went too far. So that's what happened, hey? Don't worry, Tenton. I'll make sure to talk to him. Training must be grounded and steady, you can't just mess around like that. Tenton wanted to retort because in her mind, both Guy and Lee often went way too hard. Lee's training was practically self-abuse. His body was probably riddled with hidden injuries. It might not show now, but one day, it definitely would. Still, that was Lee's choice, his path toward his dream. It wasn't her place to interfere. Her own boyfriend was way more reliable. Sure, he sometimes went a little overboard, but only in that special dream realm, where both his life and body were completely safe. By comparison, Tenton suddenly felt much more at ease. The next morning, Tenton packed up the tents while handing out breakfast. After eating, the 4 continued toward their mission site, eventually arriving near a cave. Niji immediately activated his Byakugan. After scanning for a while, he spoke gravely, there are 20 bandits inside. No shinobi among them, and their defenses are lax. However, there's a prison inside the cave, filled with corpses. Some of them are women and children. The air turned cold. Tenton's tone was chilling. Guy Sensei, are we killing them? Even Lee and Niji instinctively turned toward Tenton. The killing intent in her eyes was undeniable and they felt the same. Guy's expression darkened. I don't like killing. But there are people who deserve to die. If they do, then so be it. Guy was genuinely kind. Despite being an elite Genin, he rarely killed. That stemmed from his deep respect for life. But that didn't mean he was a soft-hearted saint. When faced with evil scum, he wouldn't hesitate to strike them down. This was also why he wasn't suited for the ANBU. In the past, during a joint mission with the ANBU, Guy couldn't understand their cold efficiency executing even harmless witnesses without hesitation. That's just how ANBU operated. Even Hiruzen had refused to let Guy join ANBU. Even Danzo had no interest because Guy simply wasn't a good fit. That said, Guy was not blind to justice. These bandits were a threat to the nearby villagers. They had already taken lives. To let them live would be to betray the innocent dead. So Guy wouldn't stop his students from killing them. After all, a ninja needed to see blood eventually, only then could they grow. This is your trial. I won't get involved unless I have to. You three can handle this, Guy said, folding his arms and stepping aside. Tenton, Niji, and Lee weren't surprised. They began discussing tactics, with Niji providing detailed info on the enemy layout and everyone splitting up the tasks. After finalizing their plan, the three nodded to Guy, then sprang into action. Tenton unrolled a scroll and summoned a long-barreled rifle fitted with a silencer. She aimed at a bandit guarding the cave entrance. Pfft! A suppressed shot rang out. The bandit dropped without a sound. The others inside didn't even notice. Niji and Lee rushed forward, kicked the corpse aside, and charged into the cave. Tenton stowed the rifle and pulled out a pair of pistols, quickly taking position near the entrance. Screams erupted inside the cave. Lee, even with his gentle personality, showed no mercy, slashing throats with his kunai. Niji, meanwhile, shattered limbs with pinpoint strikes from his gentle fist. His attacks were arguably even more brutal than killing. Some of the bandits tried to flee toward the exit only to be gunned down by Tenton's special peanut bullets. The cleanup didn't take long. Once the bandits were dealt with, the trio began removing the corpses from the prison cells. Guy went to a nearby village and brought back the locals to identify the dead. It was cruel. But it had to be done. As the villagers arrived and wailed over the bodies of their loved ones, the four ninja quietly turned their heads away, unable to bear the sight.
Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200+ audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.
Thanks for listening.